Welcome, Underhive scumbags, to episode 9 of Chronicles from the Underhive, a Necromunda and Post Apocalyptic podcast. I'm Tom.
I'm Michael.
And I'm Tony.
And today, as you can hear, we have a new member of the team joining us. As discussed before in the Facebook group, things like life can get in the way of the recording, editing and releasing. As you know from episode 8, we actually had recorded that in 2 segments. And it had taken, I'd say the first one was done right at the beginning of the month, and the second one was done halfway through, but we unfortunately couldn't release it until July. So we realised that it wasn't working with me moving and with Erin moving, and I know Michael had stuff to do as well.
Me staying hiding under a rock.
Yeah.
That wasn't working.
No, that wasn't working either. So we put a call out in the Facebook group to request new members. Tony is very kindly one of the people who have accepted the call of joining us. He's going to be supporting us with the actual podcast itself and the editing. And also a guy called Angus Kemp, who is also happy to edit and support us with the editing. He's not so thrilled about joining the actual podcast in the talking, so he'd rather listen, he said. But thank you for both of you. Tony has agreed to join the group, as you've heard from just now when he introduced himself. And now, instead of me talking, I've put a couple of questions down for Tony, and it will allow him to introduce himself like me, Michael and Erin did when we started.
Yeah.
So, should I read one question at a time and you just answer, or should I read them all? No, I'll do one at a time.
Yeah, it seems best.
So when did you start playing Necromunda?
So, believe it or not, I only started playing Necromunda about 2 months ago.
So you've never played the old school one?
No. I have actually been a long time Games Workshop hobbyist, so I was around when the original Necromunda was around. But it was never when I played. I was always more of a Blood Bowl player.
I do like that game.
It is brilliant. But basically, as we're discussing tonight, with Gang War 3 coming out, a friend of mine was always a big Necromunda fan. And this now feels like the new version of Necromunda is complete enough for us to actually have run a multiplayer, multi-gang campaign. So it just seemed like the perfect opportunity to jump in.
Wicked. Okay.
That sounds good.
And that kind of answers a bit of what got you hooked into Necromunda then.
Well,
peer pressure.
It wasn't pressured at all. I was just looking for an excuse to get into it, really. Because it honestly is, for me, it's the perfect mix of my 2 favourite game systems, which is Blood Bowl and 40k. So it's got the narrative-driven campaigns, and the sense of developing your ragtag gang of fighters, and that was always my favourite element of Blood Bowl. The actual playing campaigns and developing your team and getting that sense of linked progression from game to game, which you don't get typically with normal 40k stuff.
No, I do love progressing.
Yeah, that was my big hook for Blood Bowl and always has been. But then Necromunda takes that aspect of gameplay and puts it into a 40k setting.
Yeah, you get to shoot guns.
Yeah, you're not throwing a ball around, you're shooting guns, you're throwing grenades, you're blowing stuff up, it's fun.
Oh, wicked. So, I know you've told me, but what gang do you play and why do you pick them?
So I play Escher. And to be honest, I kind of looked out here because the reason why I played them is they were the leftover gang that no one in the playgroup wanted to play with.
Oh.
So I'd originally wanted to buy the starter box, well, the Underhive boxed game, because I wanted to get all the stuff to play with myself, so I wasn't just turning up in the gang and using everyone else's stuff to play. I could easily host games as well. So I was happy to play either Goliath or Escher because I didn't really know anything about the lore or the gameplay or anything in it. So I was happy picking up either. And amongst my other friends, someone else was already wanting to play Orlok, Spansar and Goliath. So I was literally like, well, it just makes sense if I play Escher. But the reason why I've been really lucky with that is because with hindsight, knowing how the game plays, knowing how the gangs play, and knowing the lore behind them all, if I'd gone into it knowing all that, I'm damn sure I'd have picked Escher anyway.
Oh, okay.
Because I just really love the way they play in the game, and I really like the chemical warfare aspect that they bring to the game, because it's not something you see very often in 40k.
I've also noticed since I've started playing my Goliaths as my main gang, it's really nice to have that extra couple of inches of movement.
Yes, it is. I love having the movement 5, and in particular movement 6 Juves.
I think I've just had a little bit of blood drip down my lip then where I was biting it. I was trying not to jump in with a double entendre, but I couldn't help myself.
Oh, I literally missed it. Damn it.
I'm keeping the filth in my mind today.
Okay. I'm going to start putting the E on the podcast anyway, because I think listening to last month's podcast, I was like, oh, I think I said something rude, and I didn't put the explicit bit on, so I hope no one listened with their kids.
Oh.
I may have also cut one or two things from the edit anyway that didn't even make it into the episode.
Awesome, thank you.
We've already been censored. We tried to keep it clean.
I know that when Andy Hall messaged me, he was saying something about one of the guys who sounds like E17 who talks about lube a lot. And I had to listen to the podcast back because I couldn't honestly tell which of the three of us you were talking about.
Well, obviously we all talk about it.
Yeah, and we all probably sound like an E17 member. I think we sidetracked you, didn't we?
A little bit.
Sorry about that.
But also, so I know you were speaking about. So, is there any of the skills or anything? How's your Escher's been getting on? Have you played many games?
Oh yeah. So, to be fair, this will be a good opportunity to catch up a little bit on the state of my gang. So we've been playing our first Gang War campaign now for about 6 weeks. We're doing 2 weekly cycles, and this weekend is literally the start of the 3rd cycle. But we've been using it as more an exercise to learn the game system and learn the mechanics. So
yeah,
we're just we're not too optimized with it or too precise with a plan. We're just kind of seeing how things go.
Yeah.
And campaign-wise, my Escher have been doing really well with the actual results, like putting up the wins and getting the highest rep and all the rest of it. But I have to scrape by in every single game because despite doing the best on like the leaderboard, I'm undisputably suffering the most from like actual progression. My gang is constantly suffering and on the back foot.
Do you take a lot of injuries?
Yeah, but it's not just the frailty of, Escher, which you might imagine would be the case. It is just a constant selection of terrible bad rolls. So
it sounds like Michael.
Yeah, it's all part of the game.
Put it this way, I can't remember the actual number of games. I've probably played somewhere between about 6 to 8 like gang war missions now for this campaign, and my gang rep is now at 23 rep.
Christ.
Blimey.
Which would allow me to have up to, I think, 2 additional champions. So I could have 4 champions in my gang at the moment. I still only have 1.
Just through the lack of creds?
Through them constantly dying.
Oh.
So I started with 2 in my very first game against my friend the Vansar, and game 1 he killed one of my champions. Just dead.
That's harsh.
Yeah, and being game 1, I had no opportunity to take them to the doctor because we had no credits.
Oh.
So, dead.
Welcome to the Underhive.
Yep, very much so. So I was like, oh, okay, great, fine. So that puts me on the back foot a little bit because I have a real lack of opportunity to actually work the turf and gain credits. So it took me about, I think, 5 games to rebuy gangers because as they died, I needed to buy them back before I'm allowed to buy my second champion again.
Yeah.
Yeah, you've got to keep the 50-50 split, haven't you?
Yeah. So it took me 5 games to get to the point where I'd got back to starting point with my gang. and I'd rebought the last extra ganger I needed and rebought my champion again, or my second champion that was. So then, after that, I went and played my first game against the player in our group using the Orlok gang. And he proceeded to kill the same champion I just rebought.
Oh.
And because I'd spent all the money rebuying her and the other ganger I needed to buy her, I had no credits to take her to the doctor, so she died. So she's played 2 games and died in both of them.
Oh.
And then, just to add insult to injury, in my first 6 games, I managed to make a total of 5 work the turf rolls. Because a lot of the time I was having to take injured people to the doctor and pay the doctor. So despite having a leader and 1 champion, I only got to make 5 d6 rolls for credits over 5 games, I think it was.
Doesn't get you a lot.
Not when you roll a 1 for every single one of them.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So in 5 rolls of work the turf, I earned 50 credits.
You and Michael have got to have a game, because the ones will be out of this world. You'll be shooting at each other for months.
But here's the odd thing, though, is that out of those, I think it's 8 games I've played, I've won 6 of them. So I'm winning the gang wars, I'm winning the actual fights, but man, is my gang getting beaten up for it. And
so is that just by you playing the mission, not playing the scenario?
Yes.
Rather than just going gung-ho and just trying to kill your opponent.
Yeah, it's very much, I do try to play the scenario and be smart with it. In that very battered period of time, I even managed to steal the Van Saar's leader. I managed to capture him and run off with him.
Nice.
So, after a failed rescue attempt, I just sold him back to them anyway for like 150 credits or so. But the annoying thing was those are the credits I used to rebuy the Ganger and Champion that then got killed in the next game against the Orloks.
Oh.
So it just... I'm really enjoying the game. It's brilliant.
I was going to say, I'm surprised you're still playing it and not just giving up.
I'm having tons of fun with it, though. That's the thing. I'm not sat there raging at bad rolls, because the funny thing is, it's just my gang rating that's low compared to everyone else in the campaign. But the actual games being played still feel relatively competitive, and I'm actually still seizing the wins.
Well,
it also sounds like you're coming at it from the Blood Bowl perspective, which is a very frustrating game at times with dice. So if that's the sort of thing that you're coming from, then you're already used to disappointment.
Oh yeah.
Do you play goblins by chance?
I play practically everything because I've been playing for years, but I do enjoy goblins. Yes. I played goblins. I played the vampire team, the one where you constantly have to see whether or not you try eating your own players.
Eating your own guys. Yeah.
Famously, my team of choice is ogres, but my approach to play is the passing game.
So you're just a glutton for punishment, essentially.
No. What I am is I'm very unorthodox, and that's what throws people off, because I take lines of play that people don't anticipate. Like, for example, the most recent game I played was against the Van Saar, and we were playing looters, so I had to try and steal a bunch of crates full of creds. Going into the game, the Van Saar's gang rating was about 2,300. Mine was like 1,000. So my game plan was, I picked that scenario because it randomizes which gang members he has that start on the board. When his reinforcements show up, there's chances that they can be randomly placed across the board, so they might effectively be of no use. And he has to set his gang up in different pockets because he has to defend all the crates, so he can't just be castled up.
Right.
And my entire game plan was just steal one crate. That's all I needed to do. Yeah. Just get one crate and I'd be happy. So, despite the fact I was the one that was trying to lug crates off the board, I opted to make... We were playing Zone Mortalis for this, and I opted to go for as many tiles as possible. And we ended up playing, I think, on about a 9-tile board. They weren't just configured in the 9-style grid. They were pretty scattered, you know, sort of creating tunnel networks. Because my plan was, the bigger the board, the more likely is his reinforcements are going to do nothing, because they're going to be further away from the fighting.
Right.
But all I need to do is pick one portion of that board, go for one crate, and drag it off that area that I'm in, and spread his forces. So despite the fact I was going in with, I had 6 gangers versus, including his reinforcements, versus 13, and he started his 7 on the board. But my unorthodox plan was I brought the tactics card where you can set up a beast layer marker.
A beast what, sorry?
One of the beast layer markers. So the tentacle.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, because that thing's horrendous and it just punishes people left, right, and centre. So my plan was, I picked my board edge that I was going to try and escape off. I knew which crate I was going for. And all I did was, I ran towards the next nearest crate with a juve, deployed the beast, like basically in front of the crate, which meant that all he could do was either battle his way through this monster while I was nicking off with the other crate, or ignore it and back off to go guard his other 2, basically sacrificing the first crate and a couple of his gangers to me.
Oh.
And that's basically what happened. In the end, the beast had mauled, I think, about 2 gangers on each side. And I was able to escape basically with one crate, the one I'd gone for. I cleared up all the gangers he had in that area, and I just picked my target and ran off with it.
Nice.
Okay, I've got a question for you, Tony, to interrupt your flow, so to speak.
No problem.
So, from your Blood Bowl perspective, you sound like you play a number of teams, or you have played a number of teams, but with Necromunda being fairly new to you, and you're playing Escher, have you got any other gangs that you would like to think about picking up at some point in the future? Or are you just Escher all the way through?
No, I'm definitely one of these people I'd like to sort of play with multiple gangs and have some ready. I've got the Goliath set from the box built up and ready to go, but I've also got them kitted out with some Forge World weapons instead, you know, so different loadouts. Of the core 6, the other 2 I would be interested in playing are Goliath and Orlocks.
Fair enough.
I think Goliaths break the mold a little bit, because they're the one gang that isn't, you know, strength and toughness free, sort of basic with its main gang. So they shift tactics just by virtue of being a slightly different gang. You know, you could approach playing an Orc gang a similar way you'd approach to playing a Vansar, but you're probably going to have to change how you play if you're going to play Goliaths.
Yeah, that's sound.
And then Orlocks are the ones that I just like because my 40k army of choice is Astra Militarum. Because I just like the ground pounders. I like the grunt of the universe, the guy with a gun, and that's it, you know. He doesn't need to be an acrobatic ganger with chemical weapons or a roided out muscle mountain, you know. It's just a guy with a gun. I always enjoy anything that's that sort of baseline.
Cool, that's fine.
Wicked. And so the last question is, I know that you've got your own sort of podcast, the YouTube one, haven't you?
I do. So, as you could probably tell, I'm more than happy talking away to people in podcasts.
That's helpful for us.
Yes, that's one of the reasons why when you put out the call for aid, essentially.
Yeah.
I have a background in digital stuff anyway, so I was more than comfortable with doing editing, and I had my own podcast that I edit as well. So, and I really enjoyed listening to you guys, and I'd love to have been part of it. So, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. But yes, so I do have my own 40k podcast over on my YouTube channel, which is Countillery Gaming. Yeah, so over on my channel, I host the Vox Chatter podcast. So it's a general 40k podcast, but we have a focus more on fun and casual play. rather than the latest meta-breaking competitive lists or tournament results or codex reviews or whatever. It's more about the enjoyment of the hobby. We're just a bunch of friends who all enjoy 40k, and we all play in our little gaming circle, and we just like to discuss the latest stuff we've been up to, the latest things that might be coming out, latest lore tidbits, whatever. We just hang out, and we chat, we paint, we laugh. It's great, and we invite people to come join us.
Cool. No, I mean,
I'll give that one a listen.
Yeah,
you definitely should.
And hopefully it won't give me too much of an urge to join and try and do 40k as well, because my poor brain can only handle 2 game systems at a time.
Well, it is fun, and 8th edition is a lot better. It's certainly the heyday of casual play as well. I think, particularly towards the back end of 7th edition 40k, it was very hard to play the game without it skewing towards an optimized competitive method of playing. Things like formations and so on, just basically that was how army lists were built. They were built to be competitive. 8th edition, one of the key things we've always said that's brilliant about this edition is that nothing is bad. Yes, some stuff is arguably better than others, but nothing is pointless and nothing is redundant. There's always, if you like a unit, you can play with it and it'll do stuff on the tabletop.
So are Vespids okay then?
They work.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's like you're right. There's not going to be any tower players at the moment doing the tournament circuit with tons of Vespid, but the same way that you don't typically see lots of assault marines outside of a Blood Angel army, and even then, it's not going to be vanilla assault marine. But if you're just playing for fun with it, 8th edition 40k, you can easily take assault marines, and they will do stuff. They're not just going to feel like they were a waste of points.
Right.
You play a game, they will get places, they will kill things, they'll get shot, they'll die. But, that's true of anything in the game.
The bonus is I don't really have to buy any more stuff because my 30k custodes seem to be okay in 40k now, so I can always dust them off if I need to. And I've got a couple of knights. I'm the fun guy to play. I've got custodes and knights. Hello!
I've just picked up my my first Imperial Knight because of the Renegade box set being released recently. It was just too good a deal to pass up, so I split it with a friend. So I'm looking forward to having Sir Lucas march around in Deliverance next to my guard.
Shouldn't it be like Sir Hilary?
No, I thought about
that. So, should we jump into Necromunda time?
We might as well.
That would be a good idea, won't it?
Right, okay. So, in today's episode, we'll be discussing the majority of what's left in Gang War 3. So that's the Brutes, the Servo Skulls, and exotic items. So there's a fair bit to get through today. Before we get into the first part, just come and join us on the Facebook group. I still get when people are typing in, because there's a question when you join the Facebook group, how did you find out? People are still saying from the podcast and stuff. So there are people who just so happen to be typing Necromunda on, say, iTunes and finding a podcast and then finding the Facebook group from there. So keep that up, guys, because it makes more sense, because then when we're talking about it, we post the pictures on Facebook so you can actually see what we're talking about.
Especially if I remember to find the pictures.
Yeah, that was it. I think the difficulty in the last one was because there was such a huge gap. And honestly, some of the stuff that when I listened back to it, I was like, I forgot to spoke about that. And then I had to go and put the pictures up because I completely forgot.
Yeah, that's how I found it. I was just looking, I'd been listening to another 40k podcast and thought, you know what, I've been really getting into Necromunda recently. I'll just see if there's any Necromunda content. And typed into Acast, Necromunda, and your podcast was literally the only one that showed up.
Well, I mean, when you do it on iTunes, thankfully now, it wasn't this way before, but because the huge podcasts, like the big 40k ones, had done one episode on Necromunda, because they had the word Necromunda in there, they were the top ones, even though they may have only spoken about it for 40 minutes or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's different now, I think. Maybe because thankfully people have been reviewing, or because people have been subscribing, but because of if you type Necromunda into iTunes now, I think we come up as the first, which is fine, because I think apart from us and one other podcast I know about, I think they're the only two that are dedicated to Necromunda. And the other one that I'm thinking of is not even Necromunda is their main podcast. They do a different one. The Eye of Horus podcast do their own Necromunda podcast. So but that's still linked to their own link thing, if that makes any sense at all.
Yeah.
And then there's Necromunda Tom on Instagram. So that's if you're wanting to see all the pictures, but without all of the seeing photos of babies and food. Erin. No, but to be fair, if you are on Instagram and you do follow Erin, you probably will see pictures of food. So just to warn you. And thank you for all the people who have given reviews on iTunes and stuff. Like I say, it is actually making a difference when people are searching for Necromunda. So thanks for the positive reviews and bits and pieces. And we had our first Redbubble purchase. Someone in America. Annoyingly, it doesn't tell me who, but whoever bought an item of Chronicles from the Underhive stuff, thank you. Thank you. We got the first 20% bit of that, and so if people are able to support, that means that we can have money to put towards, like I say, things like the microphones or the ability to go to certain events, so we can actually discuss what we've seen there rather than looking on Facebook to see, like, basically essentially what you guys can see as well. So if you can, that would be great, but don't worry if you can't, because this is just a free podcast of people talking about board games. So you can do honestly whatever you like, but that it is available. So if you did want to buy a Chronicles mug, or cause some of the things that they have is pretty impressive. There's phone cases and hoodies and t-shirts, and only some of them. I think you can get a pillowcase as well, but I didn't select that.
Cry into your own pillow.
I didn't select that as an option to be sellable, but there is actually the stuff that you can see that's for sale. There's way more that could potentially be available for sale. So there's some really random ones, but that's our fairly long introduction. So the next bit will be segment 2, which is what we've been up to. So join us in a second. Okay, welcome back. We're up to what we've been up to today. Not today, for the month. So, Michael, I know you haven't spoken much so far. Me and Tony have mainly been taking over. So, what have you been up to?
All good. I certainly haven't been playing much in the way of games, but I've been stretching my spending power to the max over the last few weeks, and I think I may have overstepped the mark a bit. So I'm just eating dust this next week. So essentially, I've bought This Is Not a Test rulebook. I managed to get that in hardback form, because I had the PDF for quite some time and I've kept hankering for the hardback. But the shipping costs and stuff from the States was just tipping it over the edge for me to make it. Well, I can't really justify that. But then someone in the UK, a distributor in the UK, started selling it, so I jumped all over that. And I now have a proper printed copy of that, which I'm very pleased about. Not opened it yet because I've been too busy with other stuff. I've been all over Age of Sigmar 2 like a rash. So I've been furiously...
the new rule book's out, isn't it?
Yeah, I've been furiously gluing stuff together and more stuff to read and everything else. So that feels like a bit of an uphill battle at the moment. I have received the Delta 7 Necromunda tiles. The ones that came out with Game War 2. I think they come out with Game War 2. Might have been Game War. Yeah, it must be Game War 2.
I think it was Game War 2. You were saying. I remember you talking about it for a while.
Yeah. So eventually, I finally managed to get those. So I've got those in my hand, but yet to play any games on them. So they're going to be next up on my to-do list.
Are they the ones with a lot more hazards on them?
Yeah, they've got like special rules for each of the individual tiles. So it's only really designed that you have maybe one or two of them in play on your table area.
Right.
Because otherwise it would just get crazy. As soon as one model moves onto a tile, then you can have some crazy rules coming up. So it'll give you a bit of a headache. But yeah, I'm looking forward to doing some games using those. Got a bit involved in supporting the old football for the World Cup.
Yes.
But now obviously England's coming home rather than the Cup, but that's not too much of a shocker. And obviously the weather's been excellent, like the last 4 weeks even. It's just been excellent. So
well,
it's just been outdoor stuff, garden.
Your version of excellent is different to mine.
Yeah.
I can't.
You obviously don't like the heat then.
No, I definitely don't like the heat, especially in a car with air conditioning. It doesn't work, and in an office where the workers don't like the air conditioning being on very often.
Oh.
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
You want to get rid of those workers, get rid of those co-workers and get some new ones.
I think I might just get my own. I'll just demand my own office with its own private air conditioning system.
That also works.
Yeah.
What else have I been doing? I've been out in my garage working on my 1-to-1 scale Gaslands project.
Nice.
It's not really a Gaslands project, it's just a rusty old classic that I'm doing up. So I've been faffing around with that.
I was going to say, isn't 1-to-1 scale an actual car?
Yeah, yeah, it is, yeah. That's kind of where I was going with that.
Yeah.
But there isn't going to be any guns on it, but there certainly is some rust.
I was going to say, are you going to paint some rust on it?
I don't need to paint it, it's already there.
What car is it?
It's a standard feature. It's a Triumph Herald.
Oh, nice.
It's just a square, boxy 1960s/70s family car, which I should be mildly modifying and doing up.
Mildly modifying is dropping a massive engine in it, and
yeah, that could well happen.
Nice.
I'm trying to resist, but it might end up like that.
Do it.
But anyway, sidetracked. But yeah, other than that, I've not managed to get up to much in the way of hobby. Really, it's more been purchasing.
Okay.
So I'm kind of hoping that next month will be a financial recovery month. So that'll be when I'll actually knuckle down and actually get to do some hobby and actually play some games.
Cool.
So it's kind of me.
All right, Mr. Tony, do you want to go next, or?
Yeah, sure.
Sweet.
So, this last week, I've been working on a particular project, really, which I've been really enjoying, and I actually posted pictures for it up in the Facebook group. That was I was converting up a bunch of hangers-on for like all my various gangs, and a construction crew to use as like NPC characters in games like Downtown Dust Up.
Yeah, because what was weird was I was going to, when I was writing down in my scripts like things that have caught my eye from the podcast, that we do at the end. And I was like, oh yeah, I really like the hangers on and everything. And I was like, oh, it's Tony Rhodes. Hang on, I know that guy. So I've got it in my script to call the thing out until I realised it was you. I could still do it, but it just seems a bit weird if I'm pointing out a member of the team's work.
Look how great we are.
Yeah. I was just like, oh, it's Tony. I can't even use that one.
But yeah, I was really pleased to actually see like the feedback and the all the likes and popularity and stuff it got, because one of the missions that I've played a few times now, or seen played amongst my friends, is the Downtown Dust Up mission, because it's actually quite fun to play when there's 3 of you around in one day. So, you've not quite got enough people to have 2 games on at once.
Mm.
Because the third person can basically play the settlers.
Run around screaming.
Yeah. Well, that's what we thought, at least, when we first played the mission. We were like, well, surely these are just going to be a bunch of, like, scared locals who are going to be really intimidated by the gangers that are trying to, muscle up to them. And actually, no, it doesn't tend to be the case. What happens is the settlers tend to do the most damage. Because practically every time any ganger from either side does anything other than just move around, as long as they have a fight, as soon as they shoot a weapon, as soon as they cause a serious injury on a target, all the locals that were within 12 inches of the person who did the action, or the person who got shot, or something similar to that. They basically roll on a table to determine what they can do. And they'll either panic and run off, but there's only like a 1 in 3 chance of that happening. The second, they'll also just stand around and don't really care because they're just like gangers getting in the way, doing their own stuff. Just leave us alone. Or they just turn around and take a pot shot with a stub gun because they're just trying to get the gangers to go away. They're just like, God's sake, leave us alone. This is our town. But they don't shoot whoever was responsible for the action. They shoot whoever's closest to them.
Okay.
So, if you're the person firing your weapon, any locals near you might possibly shoot you, but there might be a local who's 12 inches away from you, but that local's only within 3 inches of someone else, of another ganger. So even though you firing your weapon triggered the far-off local, the far-off local shoots the nearest person to him.
So he panics and shoots someone
people up.
Yeah, so
Nice.
For example, the very first game of Dust Town that I played, my opponent playing with the Orlocks, the first action he did was he moved up and shot with his sawed-off shotgun with his leader. But that was round the corner and down a corridor. But it was within 12 inches of a certain local, who their panic was to pull out their stub gun and shoot the nearest ganger, which was my chem thrower, who was down another corridor elsewhere, so sort of 2.5 corridors and corners away. Because the Orlock leader fired his shotgun, my chem thrower got shot and spent the rest of the game injured.
I really want to play a game with you, Tony.
Because, yeah,
I want you and Michael to have a game, obviously when I'm not around, because it'll probably last it'll either last
forever.
4 days because neither of you can shoot each other, or 4 seconds because you literally both die instantly. And then I want to play a game with you, Tony, because it just sounds like I'll trip over something and then it will set off a trap that will kill you.
Yeah, there was one instance once when this was the game with the Orlocks where my champion died, but before she did, she chainsawed her way through 3 Orlock gangers, and the fight she had with this third one caused a local to panic, who shot the next nearest Orlock to her, and the Orlock fell down a pit because he got shot. But then because he wasn't there to charge, my champion was stood in the open, and then she immediately got heavy stomached.
Oh.
So it was like swings and roundabouts. But my point was that actually as a group, I think we've seen this scenario played about 3 times now, because it's one where the deployment is everyone places gangers all over the map, and you just can't be within I think it's 6 inches of another ganger, but because there isn't a deployment edge,
more than 6.
Yeah, but because there isn't a deployment edge, what that means is that everyone is scattershotted across the whole board. So you've got gangers from both sides, just all over. So, in addition to that, you then have a scattering of all the locals who are just on the board as well, and that means it just looks like a complete tangle of fighters because there's almost 3 gangs of the models on the board. And what's happening is the locals are generally scattering and trying to get out of the way, or they're trying to clear the area they're in by just shooting all the gangers. What quite often happened was we'd have an actual ganger from opposing gangs. They'd both get shot by locals before they activated, and then they'd just be bleeding out in front of each other.
I'm going to have to give this mission a go.
So the upshot of this was basically, I thought, you know what, the settlers, they are not just scared little local people trying to avoid gangers. It's like, no, they're badasses who are just going to try to kick these upstart, teenage gangers out of their town.
Like a movie.
Yeah. So I really wanted to convert up some models for them, because at the moment we've been using my friend's old legacy Escher gang. So it's just the old some metal models he's got, which for me as the Escher player was a little bit weird, because kind of there's so many other Escher models on this table. that I wanted to make something that was distinctly not one of the gangs. So they just looked like dwellers, just local hivers.
Yeah. And they used like Katachan arms and bits and pieces for the medics and stuff, for the hangers on, I saw.
Yes, because my 40k guard, I play as a mix of Cadian and Katachan parts, because I really like the model build that is Katachan legs and torso, but with Cadian arms, because the Cadian arms have got sleeves on them because they're meant to be like, you know, the full Cadian jackets. But the Katachans have like open vests, so they're meant to be like waistcoat kind of things with cut out arms and open chest. But when you put sleeves on them, they just look like they're wearing heavy duty jackets all the time, and they make them look like urban fighters because they've got the shoulder pads, but the rest they're not wearing the carapace on the chest. So I have tons of spare Katachan and Cadian parts lying around, and I actually think that the aesthetic of that kind of model matches very much the Necromunda sort of appearance, because it just looks like a guy just wearing some clothes and scrapped together armour.
Yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of my hangers-on are converted with various Katachan parts, but the two main components of them all are an Orlok Gan box set and one of the Genestealer Cult box sets. Because the Genestealer Cults are all in like hazmat suits, so it makes them look like they're in sort of semi-industrial outfits. And as soon as you lose, you know, like the half Genestealer heads and you lose the taloned hands and stuff, they just look like people in industrial clothes. Which is perfect for Necromunda.
Yeah, that's why I use them for my Van Sar.
Yeah. So mixing that then with Orloks, where you get things like the heads and the weapons that they use, makes them look a bit more just like hivers. So I had this idea where I thought, right, well, who would be just going about their business in a Zone Mortalis game? Because I get when you play a Sector Mechanicum or a 3D board, you can make something actually look like a town a bit more.
Yeah.
But when you play on the tiles and you're clearly like in the tunnel networks, I was like, I don't fully buy this idea that people are literally sleeping in sleeping bags, you know, next to this pitfall or this pool of toxic goo. So I thought, who would actually be non-gangers that would be down here? And I settled on this idea of like a construction crew or a maintenance crew. So they might be people that are either just trying to make sure that part of the Underhive isn't collapsing, or they're trying to like excavate it for, you know, population, or just whatever, you know, they might be trying to clear up after a gang war. You know, we don't want bits of ganger just all over the place.
So, we just cleaned this mess up.
Yeah.
It's probably what that mincer thingy's for, just to chuck all the dead bodies into.
It's a trash compactor, that's what it actually is. So I thought, that would be brilliant. So I could build these general hiver-looking models that look a little industrial, and I thought, well, what would look perfect is if they all just look like they're kitted out with industrial gear. So, because rules-wise, they're all just armed with a stub gun that they just pull out every now and again. You know, they don't even use it all the time. So they've all variously got either a stub gun stowed on their person or held in their hands, because, you know, the gang war's kicked off, so they might have turned away from whatever they were working on at that moment in time, and they're just trying to get the gangers to leave them alone for a bit. But I've got them all variously armed with stuff that looks like construction equipment. So they've just been busy doing whatever, and now they've just turned round. So what have we got? I've got like two guys with like the power hammers from the various Goliath sprues. They just again look like they've got a big rivet hammer. You know, they're just obviously working away on whatever. I've got the actual mining drill from the Genestealer Cult, because they actually are meant to be miners.
Yeah, Aaron's mining laser.
Yeah.
Blasted my boy.
The pair of servo claws from the Orlok box set, I think actually looks brilliant as this is just a servo arm. That's what it's there for. It's for heavy lifting. It just looks like it's part of their rig. You know, they don't necessarily have to use it as a melee weapon. It's just, this is my industrial lifting assistance rig.
Support, yeah.
I've got a pair of guys armed with pickaxes.
You've got to do
And
the rivet cannon.
yeah, well, I looked at it, I was like, it's literally the rivet cannon. That's what it is. It's for firing studs into, structures. So he's just not using it as a weapon. He's using it as a rivet gun.
Boo.
And then I got one as well who, I was saying about like cleaning up after gang wars. I've taken the Kemro from the Escher sprue, and I imagine it's a guy just with a hose.
Just jet washing everything away.
Yeah, basically, it's just jet washing everything where need be. And then the last one that I just really loved was I converted the harpoon gun from the Orlok sprue to be essentially a winch. So rather than having the spear tip, it's got like a grabber claw on it. So
it's because I didn't click on the picture to make it bigger. I didn't see that dude.
Because it just cropped off the image when you've not zoomed in.
That's it. Got him.
Yeah, it's literally a winch. It's just the idea of that is just like obviously they'll attach it up to whatever rubble they're trying to move, and then they'll just pull it back.
Nice.
Or maybe he's a window cleaner and he hangs off the side of the hat blocks.
That too.
Very budget Batman.
So, I'm really pleased with how they've all come out, because they look like the kind of guys who they would just be working away in like the Zone Mortalis tunnels, and then when the gangs show up, they don't just go running away. They actually, they're a bit rough and tumble, and they will put out as good effort as the gangs will. They'll just turn their equipment on them.
Yeah, they probably had enough. They're like, only half an hour till I go home. We've cleaned up the whole area, and then some other people are blasting each other's body parts all over the place. They want to go back and watch the football or something.
And mechanically, they've all got stub guns on them if you just want to play it nice and simple. But if you also want to put more of a narrative twist on it, most of the equipment they're all armed with can be used as actual, weapons and their stat lines if you want to make the locals a little more interactive.
Yeah.
It was also good if you're two really powerful gangs facing off. It's like if you've got two starter gangs, then give them just the normal hivers with their stub guns. But if you've got two powerful gangs facing off against each other, just getting in the way, then upgrade the locals.
Yeah, no reason why this local can't just actually wallop you with his power hammer.
Yeah.
Awesome. Is that all you've been up to this month?
Mostly, other than playing some games, but I believe we have a section later on for that, don't we?
Yeah, definitely. Because even I got some games in. Yeah. It ended up with the way that the time went. I actually had the games before the podcast released, but after we recorded. So it's a bit confusing. So it's been a while since I played them, but I played them after we recorded, but before we released the podcast. So it's a bit strange. But okay, I'll go into what I've been up to then. So I finished the Promethean Forge MDF terrain finally. Apart from
well done, that man.
Apart from, like you were saying, the floors are a bit bright. I think the main floors, not the walkways and everything, but the large floor areas are still too bright. I went on to the Necromunda Terrain Makers group, and they suggested that I got a couple of makeup brushes, and I'm gonna give them a very light dusting of a grey to make it look like the things have bleached ever so slightly. And they said it just makes everything, because that then looks lighter, it makes everything else look darker. So I'm going to give that a try and see if I can. I thought I was permanently done with dry brushing, because I got a bit sick of it after doing all of these, but I'll do one more set of dry brushing just to get this done, and then that'll be it all finished. We can get some big old 3D games going on it.
Nice. What are you doing about storage for those, Tom?
They all fit in the MDF boxes that they come with.
Oh, right, so you still take them apart and then assemble when you want to use them. Yeah,
so all the bulkheads slide out and they slot right into the floors, and all the ladders and steps are separate. So it's really easy to just keep away. I just put them in a cupboard and they're out of the way and they're done.
Good.
So it's really cool. I started the Bounty Hunter gang. The Venator list. I've found my Vindicare Assassin, who's going to be one of the models, and I'm just still working on Dog the Bounty Hunter before I go into Beth and make all the other models. But I was going to do that as my first thing, but after I played my games at the my 2 games, I realised that I'd made a mistake on my list and put one too many. I actually put more models on my list than I actually had models. So I duplicated a ganger. So what I ended up doing was getting rid of him in the game, and then just asking the guys, because they said it's actually quite important to have 2 champions, because it does make a difference in regards to after the game and getting the money in bits and pieces.
Post-game stuff they can do, isn't it?
Yeah, so what we agreed was I got rid of the ganger and used the credits to buy a champion, but he had no weapons, so what we did was I just benched him for both games. I mean, one of those games I get to pick 6 of my models anyway, so I just didn't pick him for one of them. And then the other game, I was only playing against 2 guys because of the way how beaten up his gang was. So I basically had the champion just sitting in the wings, ready for the next cycle, if I had enough money to then load him out, which I did. So I'm now making that champion now. So he's now my priority to get done, because he's the only thing that then stops me from playing more games. So I've just started him. And I've just started painting him today, and hopefully I'll get a bit more paint on him now tonight, because all my family are away for tonight, so I've actually got some time to paint. And that's it. So those 3 things. So hopefully by the next recording I'll have the Goliath gang leader completely painted. Then I should hopefully have built the all the bounty hunters, and then get them ready for paint, so they'll all be 40k'd up, all the ones like the dwarf. So she'll hopefully be converted to look a bit more 40k, and the Vans, the Vindicare assassin should hopefully look a bit more scummy, and because he's a bit too sleek and effortless at the moment, I need to trim off some of his ammo thingies and chuck a bit more cables on there and make it look a bit rougher. He looks a bit too efficient at the moment. And I've got to convert his rifle into a long las instead of the Vindicare rifle. But yeah, that's all I've done for what I've been up to.
Nice.
The next one, the confirmed news, is going to be quite small. Should we go straight into that before we have a break? What do you guys reckon?
Yeah, let's get it out of the way, because I can't really think of anything that I've
the only thing I've seen is that the pictures of the new Cawdor models.
I've not seen those.
Have you not seen the new Cawdor
models?
models?
During the break. No, I have to do some.
Right, should we have a quick break then, and then
let's have a quick break so I can Google.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everyone else, get your Cawdor pictures out if you're not sure as well, and we'll be back with you in a minute. Welcome back to the next segment, confirmed news. All we can really see at the moment is the new Cawdor models, which do look very awesome.
Yep.
I don't know if they, like I've said, we said before we came back on air, I'm not sure they plan to release them this early. I think someone leaked an image of some of the models, and so they had to do the whole "this is what we're planning" thing, like they've done with a lot of other stuff recently, which is a nice way of doing it. I think it just gives the fact that then people who leak can't get the big like website clicks that they were planning to, when they say, oh, we've got these new pictures of the Cawdor, and everyone clicks on their page. If then Games Workshop about 20 minutes later say, well, here's the proper pictures, and then they've got no sort of leg to stand on after that.
Yeah.
It does remove the surprise element, sadly, sometimes. I mean, they might have planned to release them that early, I don't know. I do like the way they are dealing with people who are leaking stuff.
Well, hopefully they're putting them up against a wall and shooting them.
Well, sadly, I don't think well, if they are, then they're getting them replaced by someone else who's leaking, because people are doing it. But it could
try plugging that leak.
But it could be anyone, I guess. Anyone who has any link to could be a shop who's got pictures to know what they're selling in the future and stuff. It's really hard to keep track of.
Yeah.
I mean, the models themselves look awesome. They're a slight change from what they were before.
They're a little less redemptionist now, aren't they? Which I think is one of the good things. They're a bit more distinct.
Yeah, I always found in the old one that redemptionists and I know they were supposed to kind of be very similar. It's just that one went a bit more extreme. But if you didn't paint them different colours, sometimes you were a bit hard pressed to know which was which. I mean, these have got a novel sort of fluff bit to them now, where they're kind of fascinated with the custodes, which is why they've got their weapons to kind of mimic the Guardian spear, like you were saying, Tony.
Yeah, that's basically the impression I get. Is like they're basically religious fanatics. You're right, not quite as such as the redemptionists, but they're all emperor botherers, you know. And the closest you can come to being by the emperor's side is a custode, isn't it? So yeah. They're almost like his avatars. So that's why they emulate everything about them, because they're not foolish enough to sort of like believe they should emulate being the emperor, but they think they want to emulate whoever can be as much the conduit of the emperor's will as possible.
Yeah, and then I keep getting my eyes drawn back to the massive crossbow grenade launcher. It's just awesome.
I'm going to suggest that that's an unwieldy weapon.
I should imagine so. You probably can't walk. You can't move and fire with that thing.
No.
I wonder whether or not it might be an unwieldy reload, so you can only reload it as a double action.
Yeah, maybe.
It must have a pretty sweet damage then.
Yeah. Like I can imagine it being a bit like a grenade, where perhaps the weapon itself isn't unwieldy, but every time you fire it, you automatically fail the ammo check, and its reload is a double action.
Yeah, that might work.
So you can once you've got the bolt in there, you can run around and fire it just as easily as any other weapon. But actually getting the thing loaded and ready to fire is the time-consuming part.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of doing it. Good work.
That'd be cool.
The only thing I'll say with the models, I think the models look really nice. The weapon options look really good too. The colour they've chosen to do the gang, wasn't the Orlok gang also blue? Or am I misremembering that?
I do remember the old Cawdor being blue.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't...
Because I'm just very fixated with the redemptionist angle and sort of lots of reds and things like that. I'm just wondering whether they had two gang releases that have both been blue.
Well, I mean, when I was looking for the Cawdor models just now, I was looking back at the old ones, and they were definitely blue.
Yeah.
I mean, they did have red. A lot of them would have given them like red. Like they had the bandages were slightly different, so the robes were bright blue generally, and then they had bandages, but they were kind of like just round their boots sort of thing, so they were less prominent than the bandages that these guys are having, and and the leg kind of covers, some people were painting them red. So, but it was definitely the redemptionists that were a lot redder, should I say?
Yeah, it's not that I've got a problem with the colour. Blue is one of my favourite colours, but it's just that from the company's perspective, they've had one release. They're going to have a box of models on a shelf in a shop. Well, actually, I think they've told us they're not going to put them in a shop, but potentially you're going to have a box of models for the Orloks, which are going to be blue guys, and then next door to them you could have the Cawdor ones, which are also blue guys. So for like an uninitiated person just looking at them randomly, they'll just say, oh, those two are the same because they're blue.
I think perhaps the Orloks have a little bit more of a sort of steel grey kind of impression to them is what they've gone for now. Like, so blue is kind of the colour tone, I guess, but whereas these Cawdor, it's very much they're wearing like blue pieces of cloth. You know, it's like it's a bright blue, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh yeah, there is a difference, but it's just like, I don't know, it just seems strange.
I guess a good comparison would be imagine an ultramarine stood next to a space wolf. If you remove all the things that makes them look like their chapter and you just had that colour of armour, they're both blue.
Yeah.
but they're both
look the
different.
Different blue.
Yeah.
I mean, definitely if I'm using Cawdor, I'd probably tone down that blue to a dark. I'd maybe even get rid of the blue entirely and make them really roby, so that they're very dark brown or dark grey.
Obviously, everyone's going to paint their stuff to colours that they like and stuff like that. It's just like the official, in quotes, sort of colours that
the poster boy
company
version.
come out with.
I think because they're also not going to be selling them in the stores anymore, I don't think, are they?
Yeah.
So I think the only where you'd see them together would be as if you went to Warhammer World and went into their Forge World shop. I think that'd be the only time you'd see the gangs next to each other.
Yeah, so maybe that's not an issue anymore. Yeah.
I think they'd look quite nice in a sort of golden yellow if they're trying to emulate the Custards. If that's
That'd
the
be
point.
a good idea. Yeah.
You know, when I have the robes, not literally
Try
gold.
and get some gold on there.
Sort of like a mustard yellow with then perhaps some gold trim.
I reckon I could get their face mask gold.
Yeah. You end up with a little clash, though, and I suppose, between the law idea that they're all meant to be real poverty sort of guys, as opposed to wearing a mask made of gold. Can't afford shoes, but I've got this golden mask.
What's important to someone isn't important to someone else.
Yeah. I guess if they're more interested in having their golden mask to appear like a custard than they are, stepping on nails.
Yeah. That's just the Emperor testing them.
Yeah, that's just the test of my commitment. What I do really like about them, though, is I like the guy that's got what appears to be like the totem or standard or something.
The leader, the hand flamery guy.
Is that the guy who's holding the big...
Yeah, it's like a banner with candles.
Banner and candles and stuff. Because that's quite different to anything else we've seen, I imagine, from a rules perspective. Like, I've not seen anything in any of the other gangs that's like, a gang standard bearer.
I think the only ones that have a banner are the Gene Stealer cults, I think.
Yeah, they can have one as an option, can't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, what does it do for them? I can't read it.
Oh, I can't remember. We've done that episode. Hang on, I will check and I'll get back to you in the showcasey bit.
Yeah, because I was wondering whether or not it might be you could buy a gang relic for the leader, and that's what it is. So she walks around with a gang relic.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to. I mean, these guys will probably be following someone ever so slightly differently to how a normal leader of a gang would work, whereas this is more religion and belief.
A bit like the cult leader for the Chaos Gang.
Yeah, it's more belief than it is I'm the boss, this is the chain of command. Okay, so if that's the only confirmed news, should we get into the showcases? Because we got a fair old whack of them.
Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this huge amount of reading, but we'll see how we go. We'll be sending our listeners to sleep.
Yeah, but we'll go into the lore, and the first ones will be the big boys, the brutes.
Brutes.
Speak to you in a second. Okay guys, welcome back to the showcase part, and like I said, we're starting with the big boys, the brutes. So it's reading time, so it's down to Michael this time.
Okay, so get yourself comfortable, this could be sleeping time for some. So, as a gang continues to grow and becomes more established, it will continue to attract ever more varied hangers-on, even picking additional fighters and muscle. Often, a gang will go out of its way to secure the ongoing services of an abhuman mercenary or a repurposed H-grade servitor. My partner calls me the brute. Quite happy.
I managed to write something else into the paragraph. So your partner calls you the brute, does she, Michael?
I'll tell you what, you're a bad man. That's it, I quit.
That's why I was hoping that you would still read this paragraph out, because I know I'd written something in it.
You're just not very nice. You're not nice to me.
I think I wrote something in the other one as well, but you're not reading the next paragraph. So.
No, I'm going to read it from my book, because I don't trust what you decide.
Fair enough.
Right, Anyway, listeners, we're skipping on now because Tom's being nasty. But you know that pillow we're selling with our logo on? Can I have one of them?
Oh, it's not bad that your wife calls you the brute.
Righto. Okay, so the loofah pattern. So there's two types of brutes that we're being shown in Gang War 3. The first one is colloquially known as the ambot, and then the second is effectively an augury. So let's start off with the ambot. So the loofah pattern excavation automata is a heavy construct built in imitation of the amball, a huge, roughly humanoid Xenos creature common to hot, arid worlds. Thought to have evolved in the endless deserts of Luther McIntyre, the ninth, in the Segmentum Solar. The amball is now common across the Imperium. Humanity having attempted to domesticate the brutes to make use of their traits. Amballs are natural tunnelers, their powerful limbs ending in diamond-hard claws that enable them to dig through soft rock at surprising speed. Obviously they struggle with hard rock, so they're only used for clay. Their eyes see into the infrared spectrum, making impeccable use of even the faintest levels of light, and they are even able to detect heat signatures as a visual stimulus. So essentially they're capturing these creatures and then they're robotifying them, which is certainly not a real word. But the greatest success in dominating the amball lies in using the creatures as the organic component of a heavy mining construct. Specially crafted instrumentalities are fused with the brain and nervous system of the amball in a process perfected by the Adeptus Mechanicus. This is to circumvent the most ancient laws of proscribing the machine malefica, the dreaded machine that thinks. When the creature awakens from its new robotic shell, it retains the natural tunnelling instinct it had when it was flesh, whilst its aggressive and hunting impulses are suppressed by cranial governors. And that's one of the interesting things that I find about them in the rules.
The cranial governor.
The safety mode.
Yeah.
So that's essentially them.
You know, every time I think of them, do you know in Futurama where there's the beetle cows that they farm? For some reason I keep having that in my head when I'm thinking of these guys. I don't know why. Like the Mars cows or something. I can't remember what they are. I've got to watch Futurama again.
Well, the thing is, it gives you carte blanche to do, from a modelling perspective, pretty much anything you like. Okay, they're specifying that they're based on an amball, but really you could take any creature that you really want and then just add some robot bits to it, you know, and turn it into a mutant of some description, or cyborg, and then you're good to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a Ogren and stuff which already has a big mining claw thing on it, who's one of my pit slaves who could just be that, or I mean, games wise it's 215 credits with the tunnelling claws, and then for the grab fists it's an extra 90 credits.
Yeah, so it's just over 300. So both of these really, not to be exceptional, they're both fairly weighty on points, but they are tough big bruisers, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
They're ridiculous.
And if you've got the credits, I know Tony at the moment doesn't, but
I'd have 2 credits to put together.
But it doesn't muck about with the whole you needing more gangers to blah blah blah. It's a hanger-on sort of thing. So this could be your one hanger-on, and it wouldn't muck about with the gang's amount of people that it has to have before it has more gangers, sort of thing.
And also they can level up with skills and things like that as well.
Yeah, so his skills are, I mean, that comes with infiltrate, but he's got ferocity as his learning potential in the future.
Yep. Ferocity is your primary, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean they're pretty solid. Their weapon skills 3 up, so that's not bad at all. Their strength 5, toughness 5. So with the tunneling,
it's very handy. The high strength as well with their close combat weapons. Yeah, you're already getting additions to the strength as well.
Yeah, so their tunneling causes strength +1, which would then make that a strength 6 attack, which means it's double the toughness of most gangers. So it will be wounding them on 2 ups. It's got AP -2, and each one causes 2 damage, and it's got the melter thingy, which in theory would make that. That was the thing I messaged Andy Hawk, because I was just double checking with the melter versus melee sort of thing, because the melter rule says about shots being fired.
Right. Yeah.
No injury roll is made and they go out of action. So I was questioning whether it was just that they had to fire a shot. But then he went back and was like, no, it's they actually have to hit. Because most things will say if hit, blah, blah, no injury rolls made. But this one is if it's shot. So he did confirm that it's not that you just have to shoot. You do actually have to hit with it.
Yeah.
And it's got the versatile thingy, so it can reach up to 2 inches away as well. So it doesn't have to be within the 1 inch, or it doesn't have to be touching base.
I think that's the sort of point with it is there'll basically be like a 40k dreadnought where they've got a melter gun mounted in the claw. So that they're using that for mining, just blasting away whatever it's they're drilling out. But so because it's versatile, its long range is the 2 inch and its short range is engaged.
Yeah.
So the melter rule takes effect on melee, I believe, because that's its short range is melee.
Yeah, so it's basically punching a melter gun into your face.
Yeah.
Which...
it's going to be pretty lethal.
Yeah, so I think...
It's also like the number of attacks you've got. You've got 2 attacks, sort of basic, and then by the time you're charging in and stuff like that, you can start sharing those attacks around. You've got extra weapon because you've got 2 of those.
And I mean, talking about the points, it's not too bad for what you get, because that was just trying to see what would be the equivalent. So a melter bomb would be 60 credits, so that's pretty pricey, and a melter gun would be 135 credits on its own. And I know obviously a melter gun has some range, but this is pretty solid, so it'd make its way to where it wants to go with the 3 wounds as well.
I don't think it's expensive. When you start loading out your leaders or your champions and stuff, it's quite easy to touch the 200 mark with a leader if you want to throw a heavy weapon on them, which the weapon itself costs 100 or 130 or something. So it's not a ludicrous amount of points, credit, sorry.
And especially if you can infiltrate it forward as well with its 4 inch
well,
movement,
that makes up for its slow movement.
Yeah,
because the movement isn't all that; it's all Goliath slow. But like you say, infiltrate is excellent just for getting them there, and it's a big problem that your opponent can't ignore.
I love that from a narrative point of view, because he's infiltrating, not because he's sneaky, but because he's just burrowing his way through the debris. That's what it is.
Yeah, he's working. He's doing a job.
It's just like, he's just carved a hole in a wall section and just kept going until he's in position where he needs to be.
Yeah, and the thing is, if you're playing like in the tunnels, it's a lot easier to keep him out of sight as well, because he's a fairly big guy. So keeping him out of sight on 3D terrain might be a little
behind
difficult.
walls, behind a door.
But you can have him right up close and be essentially board control in one area, because you'd have to kind of kill the guy to get past him. Because if it's your own models, he doesn't block, because I think you can't block yourself.
Yeah.
But you can't get past him essentially, because you'll get yourself in range of assault.
That was my thought about using him with the Escher gang, is basically I'd use him to herd the enemy gang towards my actual gangers.
Yeah.
Like, his whole job is just to be set up where I don't want the enemy gang to go, so that their only option is to head towards my gang. Otherwise, this Ambot's just going to come, waddling in and wreck them up. He's basically just rooting them out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, sound plan.
I expect most games people will just be running away from him, and you're not going to get to grab them with your fists.
Well, the other thing with him as well is he's got decent armour as well. He's got four up armour, which is and that's considerably better than what the Ogren's going to get, which we'll talk about in a bit. So I think it's excellent.
Yeah,
I want one. It's a great intimidation piece. It's not exactly like going to be a champion with some nice weapons that just gets in there and every game consistently does some damage to the opponent. He's ball control and intimidation. He's a fear tactic more than actually constantly killing things.
Yeah,
And he's like a sort of, when your gang's doing well, you can just drop one of these on the person you're fighting. You're like, oh, come on.
Yeah.
And
I do
hopefully
And I
think
think I like the cranial governors as well for that safe mode. I just think that's hilarious. I don't think I'd ever have it in safe mode. I think I'd always just turn it off at the start.
once you
just for
turned it
giggles.
on, you can't turn it off again. Not until the game's
That's it.
finished.
But once you turn it off, you can't turn it back on. Yeah, I just think it's funny.
I think it's cool as well in that same regard. I love anything that causes that much mayhem that your opponent is unable to predict it because it's even out of your control.
Yeah. What I'll do is, if we talk about the grab fist quick, then we'll go into the skills, because we're flicking backwards and forwards into what excites us. So we're kind of going back.
Everything excites us.
So
we're easily pleased.
The grab fist is the 12-inch maximum range, and it's 6-inch close range with +1 on the 6-inch, and it's got no strength because it's got the graviton pulse. So it's got the 3-inch blast that stays there once it's fired. And then I think the guy gets hit by it, or the people that get hit by it have to roll under their strength on D6. So the stronger you are, the more likely you are to not get crushed by it. And then it has concussion as well. It knocks your initiative down by 2, I think, before to the end of the game round. So I guess the idea would be is if you can get him to fire a shot first, so everyone's got their initiative knocked down, then all the rest of your guys come in and do what they need to do.
Yeah.
I'm guessing. And then it kind of keeps the blast in place, so anyone who tries to move through it, it's just another error denial thing, so it doubles the amount of... It makes it twice as hard to get through something. So 1 inch equals 2 inches, essentially. So if you fire that at a Goliath, it's going to take him at least a turn and a half to get through that as he kind of treacles his way through this graviton blast.
Yeah. No, I think it's nice to have the ranged weapon option as well, because you look at the equivalent bruiser in a Ginstead occult gang. You got the oh my god,
Aberrants.
Aberrants, that's it.
Aberrants,
that's why
it.
Tony's
Well done.
here.
Thank you, Tony. Save me bacon. You got that. They haven't got any ranged attack, and initially when you're starting out in a gang, there are a lot of points, and they just get shot up a bit too easy. I think in my sort of experience of a couple of games I've used with them. But these guys having that infiltrate skill plus the option of a ranged attack if you wanted to go down that route, it makes them at least a bit of a threat at range and for aerial denial, like we've said.
Yeah, I think
great.
Yeah, and I mean, what I'd probably end up doing with the graviton pulse is shooting it at a place, like shooting at a place on the floor, and just blocking off again. Especially if it's in a tunnel system, you can shoot one tunnel and make it harder for them to move along, and then continue ambling up the other tunnel. So
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, reducing their movement even more and just squishing them into a tiny place.
Yeah, it almost sort of protects your rear guard. Like as you're advancing forward, you could even pop a shot behind you or something, and then you know that no one's going to be creeping up behind quickly. So you've got game turns to get wherever you want to go.
Yeah, I definitely think it's a really cool model, and it gives you just an option. It gives you enough to think about that you actually want, apart from it being really cool, that you actually want to field it, because it's got quite a few different things that it could possibly do.
Yeah,
of which,
it's got a lot going on.
Yeah, ambling towards something is perfect for it. Ambling towards something. Ambling robot, ambot. Oh, awesome. So infiltrate is, we've discussed. And then everyone's discussed the cranial governors as well. So turn off safe mode, and it gains berserker, and its attacks increased by
ferocity.
And D3 +1 attacks.
Yep.
So that would always be fun, as it already has 2 attacks. So it could really start swinging around and killing people. But if you have turned it off, it attacks your own team if it's in base to base with them as well, so it will split its attacks equally between everyone that's there. So be careful if you are turning the safe mode off. It essentially windmills. Everyone's going to get hit by it. So if it's a Juve, go nuts. If it's someone else that you don't want to die, just be careful and make sure.
I don't think it's actually that scary for your own side, to be honest, because it does say about it being you have to divide your attacks up against models in base contact. You know, but your melee range is 2 inches, so you can still have him near your guys.
Yeah.
But as long as he's not actually in base contact with them, then he won't attack your guys.
Yeah. So I think
Am I reading that right?
Yeah. So I think the thing would be is that you just got to be careful that you're not so close that your bases aren't touching. Because I know with the way Tony says his games are going, but especially I know yours as well, that if you're splitting the attacks between 5 guys, the only one that's going to die is the one guy that you gave your one attack to. That ends up being the one that gets pummeled into the floor, and you miss with all the other 4.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
And then, like you said, it's got the 4-up armor save, and if captured, it cannot be rescued, but it can be sold. Or if you've got a sufficient reputation, you can keep it yourself.
Did I read somewhere that you could have 2 of these? Or up to 2 of these?
Yes. It's just not up to 2. Luther pattern excavation automata.
Yeah.
As long as you've got... Yeah, so it's just as long as your reputation's high enough. So I've only got a reputation of 4 after my 2 games. So I've got no hangers.
So you've got a little way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the other thing I like about and where they've got like a... I don't know, they've got that sort of feeling about that safety mode, is that you could play them as an NPC, like as Tony was saying with that mission, where you've got the civilians as such. You could even throw a couple of those on the table and have them just milling about, and they just attack the nearest thing.
There's one of the missions where that actually is the premise. It's like archaeotech hunt. There's... on the edge of one table edge, or one board edge rather, there's a locked door, but the locked door can only be opened by like a servitor construct, which starts in the middle of the board, so it's like owned by no one, and both sides are trying to fight to it to activate it and get it to open the door for them. And it suggests using the Ambot as the actual thing for that scenario if you've got it.
There we go.
do you think it's like you turn up and then it asks you a riddle and you've got to answer the riddle so it lets you through the door?
Oh my goodness, you've been watching The Labyrinth with
It's
your
got,
kids, haven't you?
how did you know? It's got two heads. One of us tells the truth, the other one will not lie.
Stop.
I still don't get the answer she ever gave. Sorry?
I could never work them out.
No.
So, with the model, has an actual model been shown by Forge World yet?
I'm sure I've seen a model.
Yes, you can actually see it in the Gang War 3 book.
Can you buy it?
No, not yet.
You can't buy it yet. No.
Okay.
But I've definitely seen the
like
model for it. It looks awesome.
Yeah.
Whole chunk of resin. It's awesome.
Well, just from the artwork, they've done a real nice job.
There you go.
Like the style of the colour print they've got in that section of Gang War 3.
If you look
I want one.
If you look at page 69 of Gang War 3, there's a picture of it there.
Oh. See, I haven't even got that far. Oh, yes. That is a big chunk of resin.
Yeah, it is. But it looks awesome.
It does look awesome. I'd love to.
Can I just pause for a moment and just say that Gang War 3 is an exceptionally big book.
Yeah,
There's a hell of a lot in
it's
it.
wicked.
That's it. Moving on.
Yeah. Oh, this is by far the best one so far. So hopefully, in theory, if they're getting better every time, Gang War 4 will be amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so we obviously like that one. Should we go on to the Ogryn?
Yeah.
So the H-grade servitor. We've decided not to really discuss what an Ogryn is because I think we kind of all know what an Ogryn is already.
Yeah, from a 40k perspective, people are sort of aware of the abhumans and mutants as such.
So it's essentially just a big dude, low intelligence. 210 credits will get you one of these bad boys. and you can swap one of its fists for an arc welder for 70 credits, which will take it to 280. So the augmented fists are strength +1 again. So again, that brings it up to strength 6, AP -1. D2, so it damages twice and it has knockback. The arc welder is strength +2, AP -3, 3 damage, and has blaze. So that's pretty heavy and can catch a thing on fire, which is Erin's favourite.
Yeah, we like to burn things. Burn things.
So this one's a bit more, it's a bit simpler. I think because we all kind of know what an Ogryn is, we know what sort of thing it is. It's like low initiative, hard, strong, tough, and can punch you in the face really hard.
Yeah, it sort of feels a bit more comfortable.
I do like the arc welder though. Strength. I mean, this is the issue that I was having with my Goliath. Making anything strength 7 isn't particularly helpful. It needs to really be evens, because like where I've got a renderizer on my Goliath leader, because it's +2 strength, and then I've given it ball charge. He now has strength 7, but you're not really doubling anything out because no one has a toughness of 3.5. So you're doubling out on strength 6 anyway. And unless you get strength 8, you're not doubling out on toughness 4. So, but the AP -3 and the 3 damage would really cause a mischief.
It's very tasty.
Yeah. And he has headbutt. Pick an engaged fighter, roll 2d6. And as long as it's equal or higher tough, they suffer a strength 2 plus D2 2 damage hit. And if not, it's just at the strength of the user themselves, which is still not bad because they're strength 5. So it's not bad. They're loyal, which is quite a cool one. So when they're assisting, they add 2 rather than 1, which is quite cool for when you're doing assisting, like getting up, or I'm guessing things like ripping them out of the web and stuff like that. Excuse me. But yeah, I still prefer the Ambot. I think they're both cool, but I love the Ambot.
Yeah, I wonder whether there's with the Ogryns, there's always the potential that someone could buy a box of Ogryns and want to use them, incorporate all of those into a gang.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they make a pit slave gang. I suppose I can use my Venator rules, which I love, to make a pit slave gang as well. But yeah, I don't see why not.
But to have like a very small gang of like toughness, strength, and toughness 5 models, that'd be just an interesting gang to play against. They'd probably just suffer from getting pinned all the time.
Or they'd get stuck behind a door that they can't punch through because they can't.
Their
intelligence
work out how to
is
press
low.
the button.
Yeah, or the hands are too fat.
Keep pressing 2 buttons at the same time.
They have to get one of those pointy sticks to press the buttons. Give me my fat finger wand. That's like The Simpsons, isn't it? Where he gets really fat and he can't dial. If you need to, please request a dialing wand. So I've obviously the roster bit. Which would you choose and why? I know I'd pick the Ambot. What about you?
I think it's Ambots all day long.
Yeah, fortunately I agree. Ambots all the way.
I think
we'll probably get accused of being racist against abhumans now.
Yeah.
The one place where I think I'd take the Ogryn, and it'd be mostly for fluff reasons, is I'd take it in a Goliath gang, because I wouldn't model it like an Ogryn. I'd just model it as a huge Goliath.
That's exactly what my leader used to be. I'll put a photo of it. Actually, I'll message it to you now so you can see what I mean. But my old Goliath leader was an Ogryn that I'd essentially said had taken too many drugs in his time. I'm going to message it to you now while everyone else talks.
Everybody else, that means that's me.
Yeah, essentially.
Hello.
Well, Tony can talk. He's just sitting here waiting for me to send a picture.
This is very true. It's somewhere up in the satellite somewhere. But no, I think the Ogryns would be a cool sort of hobby project to do, because I don't know, what do they come in a box? 3 in a box when you buy them?
3 in a box, yeah.
3 in a box. So, and you're going to have loads of bits, because that box of 3 models builds 2 alternatives, doesn't it?
Plus a special character as well.
Yeah, so you're going to have loads of bits in that kit. So I think it'd be really fun to do. But whether you'd want to build 2 Ogryn servitors, or whether you'd want to try and create an Ogrin gang. I don't know.
I'd be very tempted to use the Blood Bowl ogre as the Goliath Ogrin.
Oh, like the Summit Guides guide.
Yeah, it's got quite a good pose, that, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's sprinting towards you essentially, isn't it?
Yeah. But if I was going to just make an actual, like, full servitor Ogrin for, like, any other gang, like the Vansar maybe, I think what I'd use is, I'd use the standard Bulgrin kit, because the Bulgrin one is where it comes with, like, the carapace chest and, like, the gas mask, and, like, half bionic a little bit anyway. And what I'd do would be, I'd replace its legs.
Oh, sorry, just quickly, we've gone into conversion corner without telling you. So this is the bit where we talk about how we would build the things if we didn't use the models themselves. So continue.
Yeah, we just converted over to the next section there.
Yeah, seamlessly.
That's what happens when you leave. When you start Googling on your own, Tom, this is what happens.
Sorry, I've just sent it to you, Tony.
Oh, that looks awesome. Where on earth did you get the pistol from that's that big?
That's Zinj Industries. They make loads of cool different guns, and then they do a bigger size that's supposed to be for orcs. So it goes up in size. It says human size, orc size, and like monster size. So he's just the monster size one.
But yeah, like he'd be perfect for it. Yeah, he just looks like he's a huge Goliath.
Yeah, he's taken too many roids. So he would be what I would use as the H grade servitor if I was going to theme him in my Goliaths.
Yeah.
And just say he was the leader, but he took too many roids once and fried his brain a little bit, which is why he's a lot
forgotten how to lead. He just knows how to punch stuff.
Yeah, so they essentially just aim him at the place and tell him to punch, and then he can do that really well, but he can't lead anything anymore. So that would be my theme for the Ogren.
But yeah, so for just a normal, like, servitor Ogrin, I'd use the Bulgrin body, and I'd replace his legs with the full tracked unit from the Mechanicum servitors, like the gun ones.
Nice, yeah.
And then if you had any spare, I'd be tempted to use the power fists from the big, like, 1950s space robot, Mechanicum robot.
Oh,
Do you know what I'm on about?
Yeah.
What it's called.
Because a lot of people run them as the shooty
Castellan
ones.
robot?
Yeah. A lot of them use them as the
Castellans.
shooty models anyway, so they probably have a lot of the fists left over.
Yeah, I reckon if you literally just swap the hands for those big augmented fists and the base of his legs with the tracks, he'd look completely like a servitor Ogrin, you know.
Yeah, it would look pretty sweet.
That's what I thought I'd do for it.
Yeah, nice.
Sweet.
I'm wondering whether you could get away with using like an older model, Gazgol Thraka type model before he became gigantic.
What, the old school one where he's kind of the heroic 2 arms either side pose?
Not the super old one, because that's very 2-dimensional when he's pretty small.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure there was a release after that one, not the second time around.
I think you're right.
And he became a bit more like a dreadnought, almost, but not quite. And then the current one is super large.
Yeah.
But I wonder whether that would work, and just do a bit of a head swap so it's it looks a bit more Ogrin or a bit more humanoid rather than orky. Although you can't see his head, I don't think. Anyway, I think it's in a helmet. I'm not sure.
The only other one that I think looks really nice actually is the Forge World Solar Auxilia.
Yeah, they're very cool.
Because they've got like pincer claws that almost look mechanical.
Right.
And they've got gas mask on as well, haven't they?
Yeah, they're all like fully enclosed in an environmental suit.
Yeah, they would be a good shout. I think the good thing about the ogres, which is why so many people convert stuff like that, is that you can use the Ogrins, you can use the ogre models, which is what I've used for some of my stuff. So, like I was going to say lead belchers, but that's the paint colour. Those ogre models that have the kind of where they'd have a shield over their stomach, so a lot of people then green stuff
like
their stomach and stuff.
Fantasy ones.
Yeah. And then there's loads of other companies that, like Atlantis Minis, that have been that I got the dwarf model from have just started a Kickstarter for they're making an ogre army sort of thing. So there is always loads of third-party companies doing large-ish, abhuman-y sized models. So there's just so much opportunity, and even like apart from the bodies, even weapons like you were saying about the orcs. So like the orc knob kit, which is what I've used for so many of my stuff, it's awesome because everything's ever so slightly bigger for the orc knob. So the shotguns, like I'm going to use that for my champion, and like for my pit slaves as well, like the claws, and they've got drills and saws, and they've got the flamer for the arc welder. Like some of the orc stuff is just perfect for, especially for ogrins where it might be a bit too rustic for a champion who's trying to be fancy, but for anything ogriny, you need it to be as rudimentary as possible, where it's just like aim this here and press this button and off it goes and kills something. I think the Orc Knobs kit just has loads of possibilities, like all the shotguns that have been that are in carrying pouches and stuff, which makes life even easier for people who like kit bashing like myself, because you give them 3 guns but they've only got 2 hands, so you need some of them holstered, because it is a pain in the bum. Because Space Marines, you can kind of get away with saying all the bolt guns maglock to their leg or whatever, but you don't get that sort of technology with the in Necromunda. You need like actually do need a holster for your guns, and green stuffing a strap is a pain in the bum, because I've done that quite a lot.
I sent a picture from a Cromlech like mega knob
Yes.
type model, and you think, well, actually, if you're working with that, he's got an open head. We'll put photographs on the Facebook thing after, or when we post this. So you could change the head for a more Ogryn humanoid looking thing, and then I reckon if you was to chisel away some of the like the orc glyph type stuff on it, and then just make it look like a metallic robot thing,
it's a really good
rather
shout.
than something that's orky, I think that would work, because he's got sort of cutting, sawing stuff. You could say that the arc welder is the thing in his his gun arm, or you can modify that a little bit.
Yeah, you can change that to a flamer really easy.
Yeah, but it's not a flamer, is it? It's a melee weapon that just happens to have the setting things on fire rule. But
yeah, I suppose it's more like a welding tool, isn't it? I guess so. It's trying to think of something.
The arc welder.
Yeah, arc weld.
But I think that would certainly fit my aesthetic, with the like using the orcs as me Goliaths. I could throw one of them in there.
That definitely look cool. Okay. So guys, so unless, has anyone got anything else they can think of?
I think we're all bruted out.
Cool. Okay guys, we will get back next, and the next bit is status items. So if you're fancying being a bit splashy with your clash, this will be the next bit, and it'll be perfect for you. So see you in a bit.
Is Tony going to get involved in this section, because he hasn't got a lot of cash in the old credit stakes?
Well, this'll be
my status is my dead pile.
Yeah. We'll call it Tony's wish list.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good idea.
We'll have it in the next segment. Okay, welcome back. We're having a discussion on status items. Not a huge bit, but still quite cool. We've all picked one that's caught our eye. So, should I go first for this one?
Yeah, seems you had first dibs.
Yay! I know, this is a benefit of being the one who writes the crib sheet sort of thing. I was like, oh, can I do this one? I've picked the golden guns, so I think that might be due to my old-fashioned James Bond 64 computer game where you get golden gun and it kills you instantly. But essentially with this, you can gold plate any weapon, and it gives you a +1 leadership for, and also allows you to re-roll failed ammo rolls.
Yep.
The first failed ammo check, which I think is quite good. I was thinking, is that even better when you use a rapid fire weapon, do you think? I'm just trying to think of if it is actually.
No, it doesn't
even
necessarily
better.
make it better. It just means that if you're using a particularly tasty weapon that is likely to fail an ammo check and be a disaster, or you're going to run out of ammo and stuff like that, or it's very difficult to reload and stuff, it's a good way of avoiding that at least once. So I think it's useful.
Yeah, I guess on like a rapid fire weapon, you're more likely to make use of the reroll. Like the end result of the reroll isn't going to be any more value, but you're more likely to need it, I guess.
Yeah,
it's only 40 credits as well.
Yeah.
I think just having the +1 to the leadership characteristic can help too. I know it's not, obviously, leadership doesn't get used stacks, but if you can just beef up that with 40 credits, and also the fact that you're going to have a golden gun of some sort looks really cool. I think that's the main reason why I quite liked it, was just the fact that it looks pretty damn sweet.
Yeah, well, I think at some point in your game's development, you're going to find, unless you're Tony, of course, you're going to end up with a fairly large stash of credits, and your guys are maxed out on things they can carry, like equipment and stuff like that. And once you've got 2 or 3 alternative stat cards for your different leaders and champions, what else are you going to buy? You know, so you might as well start splashing on some of these little things. And go
and I think that, and then with like next month when we talk about the pets, I think it's going to be quite cool. It's like now you've started to beef up, what else can you do to make your gang a bit more special,
more extravagant?
Yeah. So anyone else want to pick one that they've
go on, Tony, you can go next time.
Well, so which one have you picked, Michael?
Oh, well, that's a good idea, isn't it? Because otherwise you could end up doing what I did. I went for the Underhive raiments.
That's fine.
Oh, wicked.
So the ones I've picked the exotic furs.
Yep.
Nice.
Because it's for only 50 credits. I think it's a good investment. So it gives you a +1 modifier on seek rare equipment rolls with that ganger. So if you're going to use this on typically your leader, just by seeking rare equipment, they'll get +3 on the rarity roll. And by this point, you've probably got at least a gang rate reputation 10, so you're probably going to get +4 on a roll just by using that one leader with those furs. So it's going to really help you just pip up that extra point of rarity to get some of the really nifty stuff.
Yeah, I started leaning towards that myself actually when we was looking at the pets, which I'm not going to go into. But you start looking at some of the rarity factors that you need to overcome, and those exotic furs can really help.
Well, what I think is, for only 50 credits, they're a really good purchase when you happen to roll a high rarity roll, but you didn't have the credits on you to buy the really expensive thing this time around.
Yeah.
So, say earlier on in your campaign, you're just rolling because you want to get some sort of rare equipment, and you happen to naturally roll like a 12 on your rarity, and you're like, oh, okay, I wasn't expecting to be able to get something that rare, but all the really rare stuff is typically expensive, so it might be that you get this opportunity to buy the rare things but don't have the credits.
Yeah.
Well, only 50 credits, this is a relatively rare item that's also relatively cheap, and it helps you get the rarer items again in the future when perhaps you do have the credits.
Yeah, it's a good call.
Yeah, and I noticed these status items are all things that you can then create out of green stuff or by changing paint colours or whatever. They're all things that you can then just add to your model. So you can just, like the picture that's next to her, like the Escher, it's just changing the bit that's hanging off the front of their trousers and painting that into an animal colour.
Or a gun is gold, or at least around the end of it.
Yeah, or you could green stuff some feathers or bits and pieces like that I've seen people do. It just adds, it means you can add more to that model without kind of stripping it down and starting it all over again. It's just little updates that you now you're feeling a little braver because you've painted a couple of gangs. You can go back.
Yeah.
And what I think would be brilliant on just an extra, possibly slight taunting level, is if you're playing in a gang war where you know another gang has a pet, why not use the fur from that pet?
That would be awesome. Or crocodile skin, sump croc.
Yeah, you're actually running around in a sump croc skin because she killed the Goliath's favourite best pet.
That would be cool.
Nice. Crocodile shoes.
Sorry, we didn't sell your pet back. Yeah.
I'd love the idea of like a Goliath running around, say, with the Van Sar spider bot grafted into his chest because he killed it, or something like that. You know, just really taunt you, but it gives you an opportunity to have something that's in the style of a different gang on your gang.
You could wear it as a hat.
I'll just wear the cat one and just be like, oh, there was more than one way to skin a cat.
Turns out the other way was a plasma cannon.
Before we get Peter on us, Michael, do you want to have a go?
Yep. Yeah, so the item I picked was the Underhive raiments, which is basically fancy fashion accessories, for want of any other sort of description for it. They're 50 credits, so once again it's another cheap item. But it's something that then long term gives you extra credits back. So I don't think it would take too long for you to kind of justify that expenditure. It essentially gives you, when you send a ganger to go work in the turf, it doesn't say that you get an extra, so I'm guessing that you get this instead of what they would normally get. It says D6 plus 1 times your 10. So you're guaranteed to get at least 20 credits, but obviously with an average dice roll of sort of 3 or 4, you're going to bump that up by an extra 10 credits, you know?
So essentially, you make it back in 5 games. If
you're gonna make it back in 5
games,
or assuming they survive to work the turf. But
if you're in it might not be so helpful.
If you're in a gang war for a long-term campaign, no, if you're in it for a long-term campaign, then potentially you can then start cloggering back even more money from your initial investment. So I think it's a pretty good one. It's all about the money, money, money. There's a song about that.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's not about the money.
Just hope.
This is the Underhive version.
It makes me want to sing the high pitch bit.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'll squeeze me head.
I wonder if we can. Oh no, I was going to say. I wonder if we can find a clip to use of that song as the ending. But I think we'd have to pay royalties, wouldn't we? Yeah.
Licensed music. No.
What I'll do is I'll sing a bit at the end, and I'll send that as a separate clip.
You know what? There's 3 of us, and there's 4 of these items. Is it worth us even mentioning the other one, the opulent jewellery? We probably should, shouldn't we, for a sense of completeness?
Yeah, don't see why not.
So once again, it's something else
credits.
That you can just, as Tom said, you can just either model onto your model and paint it, or chances are the model might actually have some item of jewellery you could then say is the opulent piece. So this one helps you out when you're doing your medical escorts after a game. It's some way of showing the doc that you're loaded and impressing the doctor. It basically allows you to re-roll the cost of the fees. So it might help. So that's potentially good if you're if you're unlucky enough to roll a very expensive fee, and then you think, well, it's a bit of a no-brainer, let's have a go at trying to get that better. But yeah,
it seems like a really good choice for if the doctor rolls too high for you to afford anyway.
Yeah, if you can't afford it, then you've got no choice, have you? So you're going to re-roll and try and get better.
Whereas if you want to gamble it and try and save yourself 50 creds, because yes, you could pay the 120, well, not the 120, but you could pay like the 100, but you risk actually having to pay like 120 or something instead.
It's quite expensive compared to the others, though.
You have no credits at all.
It's the only thing I'd say.
Yeah. But that might be because of its importance, I guess.
Yeah.
If it's the thing that's going to keep your Tony's champion alive.
Yeah, it's worth its weight in gold.
Yeah, quite possibly. Nice.
See what I did there.
Okay, so that's the status items then. We'll go for a break and then we'll talk about the floaty skulls themselves, the Servo Skulls. So we'll be back with you in a minute. Okay, welcome back. We're at the discussion of the Servo Skulls. So it's got a little bit of the lore in it, so I can read it for a change. The manufacture of Servo Skulls is common across the Imperium, yet to remain incredibly rare artifacts normally only found in the company of planetary nobility, priests, ecclesiarchy, or of Mars. In the service of military officers or the range of rogue traders and inquisitors. Most commonly, they are made from the skulls of the most devout emperor's servants, their duty continuing beyond death. Which is strange, because I thought it would be, as a punishment, you'd use it of the people that were to be punished, but it's actually for the most loyal.
Yeah, it's just it's atonement for their skull after death. It's not you're executed because we need a skull. We don't exactly have a shortage of skulls.
No, corn would be, there'd be Servo Skulls everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've got the choice of 3 different Servo Skulls. You've got a sensor skull, a medi skull, and a gun skull. And there's the variety of rules, so they must be represented as a separate model, stay within 2 inches of their fighter. There's when the owner activates a Servo Skull, it will move with them. The Servo Skull ignores terrain. It can never fall. It can't be targeted by shooting or close combat. It simply floats away, but it can be hit by a blast. And essentially, if it's hit by a blast, it's got 50-50 chance of surviving. So on a 4 to 6, it's hit by the attack. On a 1 to 3, it's able to float clear. And then if it is hit, you roll a d6. On a 1, it's destroyed, and a 2 to 6, it's just taken out of action. But it'll be fine for the next turn. So yeah, so it only has quite a small chance of it actually just being destroyed and not surviving again. So you get that 1 outlay, but on the whole, you're going to have it for most of the time. It shouldn't hopefully die.
So if I buy one, it'll be gone after 1 game.
It would take a lot of skill, but I think you could manage it. It'd have to be a blast, it'd have to be a 50-50 that it's hit, and you'd have to roll a 1 afterwards.
Knowing me,
so it is possible.
Knowing me, it'd be a choke gas grenade that'd scatter back and destroy it, despite the fact it's gas affecting the skull.
That would be unfortunate. So I'm going to talk about the sensor skull, because I'm planning to use it on one of my bounty hunters for my Venator gang. It's 60 credits. It benefits the owner with a bioscanner, which supports in the sentry scenarios. So it can look for models outside of the arc and adds +1 to the result. So I think it gives you a 360 sort of search of the terrain rather than where you spend your time angling your models to see down certain corridors. And it also increases the chance that you'll find someone. And in addition, the fighter may add, I think that bit's a bit it only works at certain times, but the next bit's quite good, which is if a fighter aims, they add +2 to the action rather than +1. And this also stacks with war gear that can do the same. So what I'm planning to do is because my Venator gang won't have shooting as their skill, because the rest of the gang are kind of attacking sort of thing, and you can only pick 2 main for the whole squad, as we discussed last episode. I'm going to be planning that when he aims, he'll have the +2 from the Servo Skull, but also, sorry, not +1 from the Servo Skull, but +1 for aiming, and then +1 for his sight. So even if people are in cover, so if he really does want to hit a model with a heavy weapon that he just needs to pin them, then I'm more likely to be able to keep hitting with that model. As long as I can get a bead of sight on that person, I can keep pinking him and pinking him and pinking them down, and just hopefully meaning that they'll never actually get to fire that shot. And best case scenario, I'll kill them. But I think that's the one I really like, and that's the one I'm going to use. I think the +2 to aim, I think, is the main the +1 to the aim action, I think, is the main reason why I'd use it. And the fact it does stack, so you can really, with certain war gear, you can really get that to.
Yeah, well, it's also to compensate for models being in cover and stuff like that. If you can really stack your positive modifiers, then you can afford to take that cheeky shot at someone that's really buried behind some terrain and stuff. Or if they've got their camouflage things on and stuff.
Yeah, and if you've got quite a good call rating anyway, you then don't have to shoot at the closest fight, the closest model, and bits and pieces. So I'm going to cough every.
Such a professional.
I did say sorry beforehand.
I'll talk about the gun skull if you like. Can try and we'll put a positive spin on this. I think it's one of those items that it's not massively useful, but it's got some benefits you can have. It's another shooting attack for your gang, which is always handy for pinning enemy models. It's a very low strength gun, so it's unlikely to do any damage, to be fair. Even against sort of toughness 3, you're wounded on 5s. And against Goliath, you've got virtually no chance. But just the simple fact of shooting at something and hitting it means you pin them. So that's always good. I lost my train of thought then. Here we go, that's how good they are. The other thing I dislike about them, more than anything else, is the fact that if you use this model to shoot someone and it does injure them and takes them out, you've effectively wasted that experience opportunity for someone in your gang, because you're only getting the experience for taking a model out rather than just hitting and injuring them. So if just by some random fluke your strength 2 gun that hits on 5s happens to take a model out, then you just potentially lost one of your guys some experience, which is a bit of a shame.
But I suppose in that theory, though, you'd say that you wouldn't want to try and hurt or injure anyone in case it stops, say, your champion from getting.
It's a bit of a weird one, because you want almost the gun servicer to shoot last, because with all your other guys peppering all your opponent's guys, potentially you'll get some flesh wounds out there which might lower their toughnesses, and all of a sudden you could have an enemy model that's within range that's only on toughness 1 or something like that, and all of a sudden you've got a real good opportunity of forcing that other injury roll and taking them out, you know. But yeah, go on.
I think also, like with the Van Sar as well, with rad weapons, where it knocks their toughness down as well. I think there might be more and more stuff in further releases that muck about with
make it a bit more relevant
toughness. So that might.
But once again, it's an easy thing to convert or model. Like with pretty much any of these Servo Skulls, you can just use a regular Servo Skull, and that's what it is. And the fact that the gun might be hidden is neither here nor there. Or you look at something like a Tau sort of gun drone, something like that.
Yeah, I think I mean, we're going to get into the conversion corner bit in a sec. I've written a couple of the lists of the servo thingies. What about the Medi Skull, Tony?
So, the Medi Skull I like. I feel like that's probably going to be the most consistently useful one, really. Because, like you say, so the gun skull has use, but it's more circumstantial, whereas the Medi Skull, like most games, you either don't want to be getting injured, in which case you're fine, you don't mind that you don't need the Medi Skull, or more likely you are going to be getting injured. And basically, it gives a bit more free agency to like a champion, because they could be off doing their own thing and get injured, and you don't need to have a gang member nearby to help assist them as much to get back up. Because what the skull does for you is it allows you, when you're making your recovery roll, to roll an additional injury dice and pick which one you want to resolve. So it's the same as getting an assist from another fighter. Now, it does stack with that as well. So if you've got your leader who's injured and bleeding out, and you've got a ganger nearby helping them, staunch the bleeding, and you've also got then a Medi Skull floating around helping patch it all up, you're going to get to roll like 3 injury dice to try and help get your leader back on their feet.
Also, doesn't one of the skills, the one that I keep not being able to work out the rules for, one of the skills in the skills tree means that you have an extra dice?
Yeah. So
thing as well.
Yeah, it's Unstoppable, I believe.
That's
that
one.
It. I heard you talking in previous episodes about it, and I can explain to you how they all work.
Oh, please do, because it's that second paragraph that throws me every time. Because I can get the 2 dice bit. It's after that it just starts rumbling off into like a Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole that I can't pull myself out of.
If you give me 1 second.
Yeah.
So this is why we got Tony on here, really. My only question was, do you understand this rule? And he said yes. So, perfect.
So the 2 ones are, it's True Grit and Unstoppable, isn't it? They're basically the 2 that are to do with being harder to harm. Yeah, so the True Grit one you understand, where if you when you take damage, you count the damage of the attack as 1 lower.
Yeah.
So if it was 2, it's 1 and so on. But if you're getting hit by a damage 1 attack anyway, you basically get to roll 2 injury dice and decide which one to apply.
Right.
So if you get hit by a damage 1 weapon and you've got True Grit, you roll 2 injury dice, but you're only applying 1 and you get the pick. So therefore you're picking the better situation.
Yeah.
And that's simple, that's True Grit. So you're just less likely to roll seriously injured. You're more likely to roll Flesh Wound because you're more likely to pick it and then stay in the fight.
Yeah, that's cool.
Whereas Unstoppable, so the main difference for me between Unstoppable and True Grit is that True Grit, you're always getting some use out of it. It either reduces the damage, so it either reduces the number of injury rolls made, or it lets you roll an extra one and pick. Unstoppable, first of all, it's only 50-50 chance of working. You need to roll a dice on a 4+, you do something. So when you're down and bleeding in the end phase, and you make your recovery check, so normally this point when the Medi Skull would help, where you roll to see if you either go out of action, stay seriously injured, or take a flesh wound, but then roll over because you're no longer seriously injured. If you've got Unstoppable, you can roll a d6, 4 or more. If you've got any flesh wounds, you discard one of them.
Okay.
However, if you don't have any flesh wounds and you roll a 4+, you instead roll an extra dice for recovery. So like having a fighter or a Medi Skull.
Right.
If you don't have any flesh wounds, but you are injured, so you're bleeding out, you roll an extra dice and pick which to apply. So realistically what would happen is, say you're a Goliath who's a champion who's been reduced to 1 wound and is seriously injured. You've got a flesh wound to begin with because you already had one when you went down. In your first end phase, if you roll a 4+, you remove the flesh wound and then roll your 1 injury dice to see what happens to you.
Right.
The following end phase, if you roll a 4+ again, because you don't have a flesh wound, you now roll a second injury dice and pick which one to apply.
Right.
So it's representative of healing, basically, because the primary thing it does is, if you've got any flesh wounds on a 4+, you lose 1 flesh wound. It's only if you have no flesh wounds that it does something else.
But couldn't it just, because I still struggle with the second bit, couldn't it just be, if you have flesh wounds on a 4+, you take one of those flesh wounds away, and then that would be it? I wouldn't need the extra bit, because I can understand that bit, but I can't, even when you're explaining it to me now, it just goes over my head. I think I'm going to literally have to play a game.
Yeah, so what it is you're right. You can simplify it down to, if you've got any flesh wounds on a 4+, you remove 1. However, if you find yourself in the situation where you're bleeding out and you don't have any flesh wounds, you're getting an extra assist.
Right.
So you would roll 1 dice for being injured to see what happens to you. You would roll a second dice if you had another fighter helping you. You would roll a third dice if you had a Mediskull helping you. And you would roll a 4th dice if you had the unstoppable skill and you'd rolled 4+. Meaning that you're just likely to roll the flesh wound result, stop being injured, and get back in the fight.
Do you make it?
Right.
It says about that you do that. I understand the rule, but it says about when you make a recovery check. So, do you still make recovery checks for all your fighters, or only ones that are on the deck? Because you could potentially be standing and having flesh wounds, couldn't you? I'm not sure. That'd be a question for the listeners.
Check the wording on it. Let's put before making a recovery check for this fighter in the end phase.
So if you're standing,
so yes,
if you're standing,
I would understand.
Then you wouldn't roll, would you?
You don't roll.
So that's interesting, but it's still helpful.
No,
obviously.
So it comes into effect if you've gotten the unstoppable skill and you are injured. On a 4+, you're going to get some benefit. It's either the removal of a flesh wound, or an extra dice to try and stand back up, or avoid bleeding out. Which is why I think the Mediskull would be brilliant if you had an unstoppable Goliath gang leader with a Mediskull and someone assisting him to stand back up, because you're rolling 4 injury dice and picking which one to apply. Now, on the flip side of that, I would absolutely not want to be the one Goliath guy who was there the one time the leader bleeds out and dies anyway. Because everyone is going to want to know why you couldn't save him.
Yeah. He was also going to be the one who has to pay for the medical fees.
Yeah.
When he goes to the doctor. And if the leader survives, he'll have a little word with him afterwards.
But yeah, I think, so the Mediskull's brilliant for keeping your key character alive, because they're less likely to go out of action in a game. They're more likely to stand back up and reduce your chances of bottling again. Or it provides a bit more free agency, because what I often find is if you run a single ganger off to go do something, but then they get injured, they kind of just stuck there because they haven't got any assistance, so the odds of them standing back up are slim. Whereas if the Mediskull's there, they can be patching themselves up with good odds of getting back up and carrying on with what it was they were trying to do.
I like the Mediskull. That's one of my favourite one out of the 3, to be honest. Just for trying to keep you guys on the table.
Okay, so then
in the fight, that's the most important thing.
Okay, so then the next question would have been, which would you choose? So I would have chosen the Servo Skull, the Sensor Skull, and you guys like the Mediskull. And now you've explained it, I quite like it as well.
But me personally, I'd pick the Sensor Skull because I'm playing Escher.
And what
because
do you think?
The particular advantage for Escher is having access to the Spring Up skill. Because if you've got a champion who's got the 2+, I can stand up for free, that means they get far more opportunities to make an aim action.
Okay.
So you're more likely to use the skull more often.
Yeah, no, it would make sense. So, because there's no point aiming if you just
when you normally have to stand up and fire.
Wasted your turn, yeah.
You can't normally make an aim action if you're having to use your first action to stand up.
Yourself up. Yeah. I guess it works well with then. That would, I suppose, if you've given them the what's the not getting pinned one? Nerves of Steel.
Nerves of Steel, yes. So if you're a Goliath or an Orlock of Nerves of Steel and you've got a Sensor Skull, you're more likely to make use of your aim skill. No, aim action.
So when I was talking about my Venator gang and him being the kind of the only shooty one of my thingy, I'm thinking, what should I give him? Now I want to give him Nerves of Steel, so he's more likely to not get knocked down.
Keep them on their feet. Keep them on their feet. Keep them shooting.
It's good to talk. Okay, so the conversion bits. So I've got a couple of places that I know where you can get a Servo Skull. So the Scion kit comes with one. That's what I've got. The Cadian Command Squad. Death Watch have them. Space Marine Devastators have a Servo Skull. I've also know that you can just mock up I've got skulls from Green Stuff World. But anyway, you can get a skull and the Green Stuff Tentacle and / Cable Maker, the thing that I love, that I make tentacles and cables all the time. Anything that's just dangling off that is really easy to make a skull. I was planning to do a 40k army, like a Lunar Wolves one, and I got some wolf skulls off SD, the kind of that eBay sort of site. But if you buy, like, where people have wanted to make jewellery out of animal skulls, like little small animal skulls, I mean, these are still quite large because I was going to use them for the heads of the like you were talking about today, Castellan robots.
Yeah.
But they're slightly larger than a normal skull, but it doesn't really matter. I mean, they can't get shot at anyway. So the skull can be any size, especially if you're going to make it a gun skull.
I could just see a Goliath gun skull being a Ogrin skull carrying a heavy bolter.
Yeah, just a heavy bolter stuck underneath it. I mean, I guess, because the Servo Skulls are quite small in theory, they are a little tiddly, so it would mean that you've got to... that it'd have to be a slightly more substantial.
Yeah, you've got to have some sort of weapon on it.
Skull, because
but it's only a pistol stat line, isn't it? So it's only going to be a single small barrel.
Yeah. To be fair, it's probably less than a pistol, so it would be a tiddly weapon, and all you'd have to do is just roll a tiny bit of green stuff out and cut both ends, and you've got yourself a little barrel.
Yeah. The other thing you can do as well, if you want to stretch the aesthetic a little bit, is just have a little tiny robot type affair. I'm thinking of there's a model from Malifaux. I'm not sure what the current model's like, but the older model for one of the Arcanists was a mechanical attendant, which is like just a little tiny little spider type assistant that had lots of little tools and stuff. So that's probably quite suitable either as a Medi Skull or even as a Servo Skull. You could say that some of the probes and stuff that are on it are sensing things. So yeah, I think that would work, and I'll sort out some photographs of that. And
okay, cool.
Posted.
The one that I would definitely want to do though for at least one Medi Skull would be there's an Inquisitor from the Forge World range that comes with the Servo Skull that's meant to have like a roll of scripture with him. So nice. It's got like a roll of paper that's meant to be trailing to its base, and I would just want to paint that up as like bandages.
Oh, yeah. So just wrapping you up as you're trying to walk along.
Yeah, it's just floating around dispensing bandages to people that need them.
I hear you need assistance. And there's also like Rust Stalker kits and bits and pieces and Mechanicus stuff that have tiny little claws that are kind of attached to stuff that you can easily get on a Servo Skull, and little retractable sort of claw arms. There's loads of Mechanicus bits. Or Mechanicus.
Well, I just
I can't remember. Mechanicus, I think.
I just sent you guys a picture on the chat thing, which that'll be the one that I'll post on the Facebook. So there's a picture of two models, which are these little mobile toolkits, I think they were called. And the model on the right is the one that I've got, which is the old metal model. So it's just basically a ball with a couple of little spindly arms and spindly legs coming out of it. And then the one on the left is the current, I guess, plastic version of it. So it's small, and you could argue it looks a bit like a skull. So you could make it floating if you wanted to take the legs off it and just use the arm type bits. So.
Well, looking at that now, I've just thought, looking at my kind of Scutari bits and stuff, we've got heads and bits and pieces that I can mould the bottom bit of a skull off, and they will make.
I don't think it's going to be too difficult a little project to do.
No.
Yeah.
You could do an army of skulls.
Corn loves it. Yeah.
That'd be sweet. And it'd be very cool to see what you guys are doing if you're making some Servo Skulls as well. Even if they're not to actually put in your gang and they're just to
why not?
Build for the hell of it. Okie doke. Next up, we're going into games played. I've written a couple of notes of the games I've had, and I know we've discussed a bit of it already, so it shouldn't be too long. And then we're going to go into the thank yous and the close. So now into games played. Welcome back to Games Played. So I know Tony's already discussed some of his games already. I've said that I've played 2 games. So the 2 games I played were after the recording of the last episode, but before... No, hang on. Yeah, they were after the recording, but before the episode was released. So it was a while ago. So I played 2 games in one day at the Bedford Weird Boys group. One was with a guy called Joseph, which was a 6 versus 6 kind of skirmish game. He had Escher, and it was just a teaching game again because I haven't played very much. So we just had a quick game on the tiles, on the tiles that came in the box. So the highlights of that game was my Juve got taken out of action in front of the champ, who, even though he's a Goliath and he's got a 5-up call check, failed it twice in a row. So he hid for 2 turns, not doing anything. But because it was 6 versus 6, Joseph, who I played, rolled a 6 on his bottle check and lost 2 models in that bottle, including the leader. So that was quite brutal. So he ended up with 4 models against 5. And then it just got worse for him from there. So eventually he bottled. The Juve that I had taken out of action actually rolled the learned from experience and got bonus experience for getting knocked off the board. So that was pretty lucky. And then my second game was with a guy called Chris Austin, who's the person who I know is messaging me about the campaign. So this was my first campaign game. My gang was full, apart from the champion, which we discussed. I haven't actually put in the game yet. So it was my full gang, and because he had a really heavy game last time, he only actually had 2 models that were playable in this game.
Dear.
Yeah, so due to all his damage before, it's ended up being like 8 versus 2. So I won that game. It was a little one-sided, that one. But what I learnt was from that game, because this was on 3D terrain instead, he was up a level, so I was trying to get all my models up to that level and then across. But the problem was that I was so wanting to get everyone on that level that I didn't think that when the guy got knocked back, he then fell off the level and went down to the next floor. So where I'd spent all my time getting up to the floor, I should have kept a couple down, because when he got knocked down, they would have been able to coup de grace him while he was on the floor. So next time I'll just be a little less... I played the game like 5-year-olds play football, where everyone just charges after the ball. Yeah, and everyone just swarms a ball, and then if someone actually stood to the side, the ball eventually goes to them, and they could run off and actually score. But I sprinted everyone at these two guys, got them all on the same level, and then knocked one on the floor, and then knocked the other one off the side. The one went out of action, and the other guy was on the floor in a lower level, and I had no one to attack him with. So that's what I've got to make sure next time, that I don't just start sprinting at everything all on the same level, to actually have people split. Because knockdown is a thing, obviously, on 3D terrain. So hopefully I'll learn for the next game. Not everyone on the same level. Because even if they're on one level now, it might be they're not necessarily on that level the next turn.
It's the best way to learn, isn't it? By doing.
Yeah, and I think
you do it, and you can see it with your own eyes and your own experience. To go, oh, I'll remember not to do that next time.
Yeah, and even more so with the Goliath, because they've got such a small speed thingy. If I was playing the Escher, they could drop down and disappear, and because I've got no one down there, there's nothing I can do, sort of thing. So I'm going to have to think about the way Goliaths work and actually spread them out a bit, so that they can actually take out areas rather than just charging, and because the Eschers will just run them around in circles otherwise. So yeah, that's it. So hopefully I'll learn from my mistake for the next game.
Yeah,
but I'll let you know if I do or if I don't. But that's it for the games played. We'll go into the thank yous and what we've seen on the Facebook page. So we'll be back in a sec. So we're at the thank yous and the closes. So I want to thank Mike Thomas from Six Town Scenery. I'm actually at the point now, once I've completed the champion, that I'm going to be completing that terrain. I've just spoken to the guys about the difficulty of still trying to get the chipping stuff to work, but I can't. So it's going to have to be dry brushing, because I'm sick and tired of spraying rust stuff down and then not being able to get the bloody silver off it. So I'm just going to dry brush everything. So it seems to have worked for the MDF, so it should be fine for this. So it's now up to the bits that have what things we've seen on the group that caught our eye. So whichever one of you guys wants to go first.
I'll go and get out of the way, because my list is fairly short. So these are stuff that just been pulled off randomly from around the interwebs, rather than specifically from our Facebook group, but they may or may not have popped up on there too. There's a guy called Eric Rady. He's posted two things up fairly recently, one of which is Necromunda based, which is he's got some servitor type guy on a little hover chariot chair thing. I've got no idea what he's using that to represent, because I haven't really sort of followed the thread. I just saw the photo and thought, oh my god, that looks amazing. It looks almost like the Time Machine, sort of H.G. Wells sort of Time Machine sort of machine, and just looks really cool. There's loads of converted bits.
Do you know what group you saw it on?
I think it might have been in our group, but it was definitely from the Necromunda Worldwide Facebook group. But I'm pretty sure it's also been posted in ours. But it will be some time ago. And then the other thing that he posted was a converted boat, which, although it's not Necromunda based, it's obviously got guns and rust and stuff slapped all over it. And I think that would be really cool to have a fleet of those for a water-based Gaslands game, because the rules for Gaslands are adaptable for pretty much anything, whether it's aerial, sort of aerial vehicles, water or land-based. So you could have like a game where you're going through the Everglades or something on speedboats and shooting each other. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, I've just seen it on Necromunda Worldwide.
Yeah.
And the boat. Yeah, they're pretty cool.
So we'll post up photographs on or when we attach it to this podcast when we release it, so you'll be able to see the things we're talking about. Next thing that I saw that I really liked was the Gangplank event tray made by everylittlewar.com. It's like an MDF tray for carrying your gang around, but it's also got cutouts for your dice, for your markers and for your deck of cards. Not for
Yeah, I've seen it. It's really cool.
And I don't know what the price is on that, but as long as it's fairly sensible, I think it's actually a pretty good purchase. Not so much if you're going to a tournament or something like that, but even just down a regular club. If you're going somewhere for an evening and you're expecting to get a couple of games in, you're not necessarily going to be playing on the same table. So to be able to get your models out of its box, stick them in your little tray, and then you can just move from one table to another, I think it's brilliant. And then the last thing that I spotted was for a guy that I'm about to butcher his name, Giuseppe Del Bound, I think it was. But luckily enough, he looks like he's got a business that's abbreviated as GDB.
Okay.
So, yeah, I'm not sure about scribbly handwriting. And he made a dispatch hound. So, as a pet type creature, which we'll obviously be discussing a bit more next show. He basically looks like he's got an old goblin wolf from Warhammer Fantasy, and then chopped the head off, and then covered that up with a robotic looking head piece, and then the tail has been replaced with something that looks like an aerial antenna, and that looks really cool.
I'll look forward to you posting those pictures up on the thingy.
So I'll send them through this evening on the messenger thing.
Okay, cool.
Then you can sort of see what I'm talking about. But they're the things that caught my eye this recent few weeks.
Okay, what about you, Mr. Tony?
Well, I've been having a look through the Facebook group, and there's a few little things I saw that I quite liked. There was a few weeks back now. There's a board with a game being played by Tom Fern, and he's got a converted Escher cargo hauler that I think looks really nice. It's made out of like an Astartes Rhino.
Oh yes.
But the fact he's got like the crates and stuff in the back of it with the roof open and then like a lifter dropper arm built into it, I think is really cool.
They ran a mission with it, didn't they?
Yes, I believe so. And it's got because you've got like Escher written on the side of it and stuff as well. So it's like it's a properly looted like Rhino that they've got working for their gang, and I thought that was a really cool idea. And then the other one is from Mr. Trevor Goddard again, because some of the stuff he kicks out is amazing. I don't know how he does it so quickly either. But the water processor that he's done in the last month looks great. It's a brilliant idea. He's built basically like this big industrial tank made out of like a hamster ball.
Yeah.
So you can imagine the scale of it compared to Necromunda models. It's a big silo of water, and it looks really sweet.
Yeah, essentially now I think to this point, because I'm going to be doing it now as well, I'm just going to call him Trevor, and then everyone will know who it is without having to say his surname. Essentially, I think it's like if you say Trevor, people will know who you're talking about. I think that's the rule from now on. Like,
I think what we need to do for a future show is we should have a competition to make a terrain piece, and then what we'll do to stop Trevor from winning that, because he clearly probably will, is we make him the judge, so he gets to decide who the winner is.
Well, I can ask him. But yeah, I mean, it'd be worth a go.
Yeah, something for the future.
Yeah, I think this scenario one obviously we'll do hopefully next month we'll discuss, and then another one will be good. It's always nice to have a competition.
Yeah.
Any more, Tony?
That was about everything for now. I mean, there's certainly plenty of interesting stuff in the group. I love seeing everything that people put on there. I mean, Tony Bellew had been making a few Beastmen for a Bentar gang, which I think look really nice. I particularly liked the one with the heavy bolter, because the Goliath scale arms actually sort of fit the Blood Bowl Beastmen really well.
Yeah, I remember seeing a Beastman on a group that's a fairly weighty one with this chainsword on its shoulder. Is that the same?
No, okay. That particular one was by a certain Trevor.
Oh, Trevor. I think it's just going to have to be from now on. It's like, yeah, we're going to obviously Trevor's part of it, and then just go from there.
So this is what Trevor's been doing this month, and this is what everyone else has been doing.
But it's always cool to see nice stuff. Actually, I've got. I've just realised I've got Tom Fern's Escher models as one of mine as well, and the and that scenario with the rhino and stuff. That's one of my things.
I think it was really sweet. It was really good.
Yeah. Okay, shall I go into some of mine then?
Go.
Cool. So got Michael Green's breakdown of the skill trees again, and obviously he does his battle reports too, so they're always good for me to read. And obviously, as you can hear, sometimes I do have trouble with trying to break down what the skill actually means. So it's sometimes nice to read it and someone hopefully explain it to me so my brain can actually work. Trevor, obviously, as a surprise, for his gun stool, which he made out of that GW plastic container, which looks awesome. I'd love to try and do that as well. But those gun containers look just the right size for someone to make a makeshift stool from. There's Alex Shear, who's made a war rig. I'm not sure if either of you have seen it, but it's awesome. Looks like the one from Fury Road.
Yeah.
In its proper size, so it looks wicked. And then I've got Eric Paints. I'm guessing Paints is not a surname. I think that's probably his company name. But he's made a Gene Stealer cult gang, and I love the name as well. The Prodigal Sons of a Legitimate Mining Company. And obviously, you're not going to look into it because it says the word legitimate, so it must be safe. And then again, Tom Fern, like we've discussed, his Escher models. I had written about Tony Rhodes' non-ganger models because I saw the models and thought, I'll talk about them, and then realised that it's Tony who's doing the podcast, Tony. So well done, Tony. I like your models, and we've actually discussed them already today. And I just wanted to speak about the. I wrote it on the in the group already on the Facebook group, but the Ash Wastes Facebook group, which is essentially a lot about what they're hopefully going to do in the future, which is about the desert, and it's got loads of vehicles, loads of converted vehicles, just stacks of things like the Fury Road stuff. So it's something I want to do with my Goliaths in the future, but there's just loads and loads of cool vehicles that have been made out for 40k sized stuff. So it's called the Ash Waste Facebook group, so if you can, have a look at that as well, because it's really cool. But that's essentially it, really. So yeah, unless you guys have anything else to say, we can finish the episode.
No, I think we're done.
No, I think that's everything.
Okay, I want to say thank you again, Tony, for being able to edit last episode, because I don't know when we would have got that out otherwise. And
No
and thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for letting me be here.
No, it's slipped right in. It's been really, really good. I think you've actually made us a bit more sensible as well. I don't know how many. I've picked out one double entendre today, and I haven't really mentioned lube either. So I think we've done really well. Okay, guys, have a good month, and we will be back next month with the pets and scenarios, and hopefully a new competition. So
Excellent.
We'll see you in a month's time. Well done, everybody. Well done. Anyway, goodbye, everybody. Do really well. Don't get killed like Tony, and have some champions to actually go and get some
Sounds
money.
a bit extreme.
Maybe I'll have some credits by this time next month.
Oh, it'll be good to hear. We'll have a breakdown of our campaigns for next month. Okay, everyone. Bye.
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 And that was the end of Chronicles from the Underhive, a Necromunda and Post Apocalyptic podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. All the things we talk about in this podcast can be found at the Chronicles from the Underhive Facebook group, where we'll post up links to all of the websites we discussed and the current projects we're working on. Come and join us and post up your Necromunda projects. We hope to see you there, and may you never roll a double on your gambling den.